So, what does it mean to be a man? It's hard to give an all-encompassing answer. It means showing respect, it means defending what you love, it means learning and adapting, it means overcoming a challenge, it means loving those close to you, it means teaching those who will come after, it means legacy. But, if there's something that perhaps contains a piece of each of those, it's sacrifice.
Blaster burns and forgotten days. Secrets folded in a Prozac set. Every clue's a star I can't forget. But the deeper I go, the darker it gets. What comes low, a droid's lullaby. Cards on the table, who's telling a lie? Moonlight shadows, they know where I've been. Smoke girls dancing with the dark within the truth. And I play, but never win. Moonlight shadows, let the hunt begin.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. As I go through my first draft of this, it is originally written when it is Men's Mental Health Month, a month we share with gay pride. I will leave you to draw your own conclusions on that, and as which is more heavily emphasized during the month of June. But the reality of life is that as a man, you have to manage your shit. It can be cold, even harsh. But the reason men are so often closed off and internal is because we learn to be. As boys, we learn that our job is to be dependable. You can't afford to fall apart because you have duties that are required of you, and so you have to sacrifice for those around you. War is perhaps the easiest and largest example of this. Men give up their home, their youth, their wife, their children, and many of their friends, family, safety, even their well-being. They go on to fight an enemy in a conflict they have never chosen. They spend time training, learning to do nothing more than exactly what they're told to do, no matter how impossible it may seem. They risk being shot, and in many cases are actually injured, even severely, and even if it doesn't take them out of a fight, it will have long-term effects. But you push that away so you can kill other men, sent to fight at the behest of their country in a conflict far beyond any individual man on a field. You lose those in your platoon, your brothers, whether you particularly liked them or not. And finally, when your rotations are done, you come home to deal with the after effects. Sometimes wives leave their husbands during their service, some have affairs, some men never come back whole, having left their minds or pieces of themselves on the field, and of course, some never come back at all. And those who do aren't always appreciated for their service.
And I come back to the world, and I see all those maggots at the airport protesting me, spitting, calling me baby killer and all kinds of vile crap. Who are they to protest me, huh?
I begin this opening spiel of mine because not too terribly long ago, Josh and I sat down to watch It's a Wonderful Life for the first time. Somehow, despite knowing the basic idea of the end of the film, I had never actually seen it, and neither had he. Not super hard to see why when I look back, in fairness. It's an old black and white film that has to compete with the old claymation movies The Grinch, A Christmas Story, Home Alone, Miracle on 34th Street, and of course the Mountain of Christmas sludge streaming out of streaming services every single year after year. Despite knowing it was a fairly famous movie, we'd simply never seen it. However, both of us hold some respect for the actor of Jim Caviezel, given his work on Passion of a Christ and Sound of Freedom, two harrowing-ass films which hit anyone who watched them if they have a heart. And Jim spoke rather passionately about a prayer scene towards the end of the second act.
If you watched It's a Wonderful Life, that film was very profound in its time and very hard to watch. And during Christmas, the most beautiful time of year, because this guy wants to end his life. That man flew 26 missions in a Liberator over Germany, World War II. Stewart lived with PTSD his entire life, and especially in that scene. And I'm sure that trauma played out there, but God used it in the most beautiful way.
And so we figured, why not? It's on Amazon, even colorized. And to be fair, there was originally a dispute between Capra, because the colorization company at that time screwed him over because the film was technically public domain. But it's worth mentioning that that version was pulled. That was made in 1993. It is not the colorized version available now, or the one that I am using for this breakdown, which, as I understand it, was done with the proper approval. So why not give this a little spin and see what it's all about. We really didn't know what we were in for. This is above this man's pay grade.
This whole movie's above my pay grade. Holy shit.
Yeah, man. Now don't you worry, we'll get to the film. No, it's me. I'm an unofficial guild member of the Long. But one thing we have to stop and do is take a quick talk about our main actor, Jimmy Stewart. For those who don't know, Jimmy Stewart was an actor who went on to serve in World War II, and rose to the prominent position of Deputy Commanding Officer of the 2nd Bombardier Wing, commanding the 703rd Bombardment Squadron from 1941 to 1947. What people may not know, and I grant I couldn't quite confirm this because there really just isn't a lot of information on it, but as the story goes, Jimmy became obsessive with planning out routes and runs, and this was necessary because these bombers often fly within such close quarters of one another that one wrong move can lead to disastrous effects. So he often redrew maps and made plans over and over, making only millimeter adjustments on them, often foregoing sleep because he was convinced, and perhaps not unduly so, that by working so hard, he could save just one more life.
Please, Lord, help me get one more. Help me get one more.
And this is something not uncommon for those who have leading roles in the military. You become responsible for the lives under your command. That's not something that a man can manage easily. There is a sacrifice even in leadership. This was compounded by his knowledge that, unfortunately, his orders and runs resulted in civilian deaths on the German side, something he was apparently never able to accept quite easily. Eventually, he returned home and, while still part of the reserve forces, tried to resume acting. Despite being a lead man before leaving for his service, James discovered he was having an impossible time simply returning to work. America had changed during his service, between the late 30s and now the mid-40s. It is not to say he was always a lighter actor.
And it's not too late, because this country is bigger than the Taylors, or you, or me, or anything else. Great principles don't get lost once they come to light. They're right here.
But after coming back, he was convinced America simply didn't want him anymore, and so he meant to retire from acting. And then he was approached by Lionel Barrymore, who convinced him to take on the role of George Bailey against his protests. Barrymore, of course, going on to play the iconic Mr. Potter, somebody who we will talk about in depth at the end. But, in fact, originally the film was designed for another actor, Cary Grant. But when Coppola inherited the film, he rewrote it to suit James better, more personally. So we open with a lovely little title sequence drawn on hand-drawn paper. Not that that's so very important, I simply thought it was sweet and cool. And we open up on a sign welcoming us to Bedford Falls, in the midst of a snowstorm. Now, it's worth a brief mention of the mastery of this film that it's snow. See, prior to this, snow had been done by creating painted flakes, and this caused a shit ton of noise, and so snow scenes always had to be dubbed over. However, Capra pioneered his own form of firefighting foam solution that they would use to imitate snow. Most of this movie is actually shot during a freak heat wave in July. Not that you would know that. We hear people praying for our protagonist, George Bailey.
To George Bailey, help him, dear Father. Joseph, Jesus, and Mary, help my friend, Mr. Bailey.
What's the matter with Daddy? Please bring Daddy back.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Daddy.
Oh, wait, something's wrong with their dad. Stop it. Is this a sad one?
Oh my god, no. Can we start off a bit happier? I thought you guys said this was a feel-good film.
It's very, very powerful.
Yeah. You know it's an older film when they unapologetically open on something like prayer and angels.
What? Who the fuck are you?
I'm an angel. See the wings?
Not like that. We pan out to space and see several glowing systems representing old biblical characters now turned angels.
A lot of people asking for help.
It's goofy, but I like it. We will leave aside the biblical inaccuracies for a moment here, and they discuss Clarence, a slightly dim angel, though with great faith.
Looks like we'll have to send someone down.
Oh, Clarence hasn't got his wings yet, has he?
We've passed him up right along. Because, you know, sir, he's got the IQ of a rabbit.
Yes, but he's got the faith of a child.
So they send for him, represented by a little star, Now, even as slightly cartoonish as this looks, there is an undeniable charm to it, and I would much rather see this in all its late 40s glory than a 2020 CGI fest. We are then told that George is seriously considering throwing away God's greatest gift, life. Now it's dressed up just a little bit, but to open on the possibility of suicide is certainly a cold slap in the face that this film is going to be tackling some darker stuff. And please, allow me a quick side street here. As an internet culture, can we please stop saying unalived and graped? I get that we did this for censorship, for sponsors, but it's not only annoying, it's downright childish, and I would prefer that if we're going to go ahead and open up on a topic like this, we rather just hit it straight on, instead of turning into something like the Boogeyman from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Sorry, it's just, that's been annoying me for some time. This is also the case where we hear of Clarence's hope of earning his wings, as he's been waiting for over 2 centuries to earn them, and an angel cannot earn his wings until he's considered to have done something right, and earned them through that, commonly by helping somebody on Earth.
If I should accomplish this mission, might I perhaps win my wings? I've been waiting for over 200 years now, sir, and people are beginning to talk.
Clarence, you do a good job with George Bailey, and you'll get your wings.
The angels declare Clarence needs to understand who George Bailey is as a person, and so become our framing device for the first 2 acts. We see a bunch of young boys using shovels as makeshift sleds to slide down a hill over the top of a frozen lake. Classic winter behavior for young boys. We even get the first introduction to the hee-haw greeting, which will be repeatedly used, and while it now seems odd, it's an inside joke that stands between them, probably similar to how many of us talk in references to our close friends today. Several of the kids go down, followed by George's younger brother Harry, who unfortunately breaks through the ice and starts to drown. I told you this movie hands us some dark shit very quickly. It's also believable amongst young boys who don't think about safety very often. Kids hurting themselves is just an understood facet of childhood.
We had a bunch of 9-year-old paramedics running up. We didn't know what to do. We get up there. Get some leaves! You do what you can.
Luckily, George is able to pull his brother out of the ice and save his life, though one of the effects of this is that George gets an infection in his ear and will never be able to hear out of it.
Oh shit! Oh my god, that's freezing water!
No, did you not think to get...
George didn't even think about it, he just jumped in.
Oh no! Damn, he just jumped in.
George saved his brother's life that day, but he caught a bad cold, which infected his left ear.
Oh.
Oh shit. Oh my god. Oh, that's awful.
Already, we are hitting upon sacrifice. Granted, this one isn't nearly so conscious a choice as the one George will later make. Nevertheless, George winds up being sick and is laid out for a few weeks. So we've already gotten a little piece of George's character. He is somewhat brave and adventurous, but obviously cares for his baby brother, and is willing to put himself in danger if it means he can save someone else. All fairly solid stuff and decent character work. As the boys are walking back, we get our introduction to Mr. Potter, the rich asshole who causes trouble for people and businesses in town in search of personal aggrandizement and wealth.
Who's that? A king?
That's Henry F. Potter, the richest and meanest man in the county.
George is slung into the shop where he works after classes by his friends, and we get our introduction to Mary, who is so obviously interested in George, not only having waited for him to arrive, but lighting up when he does, and, as we'll see, she confesses her love for him in this very scene. It's all very cute, childhood romance kind of stuff. We get our introduction of George's desire for a grander life. I actually have no idea what this thing actually is, but apparently the general idea is you make a wish, you pull the lever, and if there is a light, the wish is going to come true.
Wish I had $1 million. Hot dog!
Fill in any one of a dozen such odd products we still use even today. George's wish is for $1 million. Mind you, I believe this is the 1910s $1 million, so a huge amount of money, but it's not just the wealth that George is interested in. It's the idea of travel, of exploration, of experiencing things beyond the life of a small town. I imagine plenty of people who grew up in a small town can relate to something like this. George begins to go about his work happily whistling. He calls out to Mr. Gower, who owns the shop, who we'll see is not in tip-top shape. At least according to what I found, the actor is apparently actually pretty sloshed during this filming. They believed in method acting to a point of flaw, I guess we could say. We see Violet walk into the shop, who has a standoffish relationship with Mary, likely at least partially due to Violet's casual interest in George, lumped together with most of the other boys in town, as the scene tells us.
I like him. You like every boy. What's wrong with that?
She offers George her arm, and George, being a young boy and about as wary of flirting as a brick wall, scoffs.
Help me down? Help you down?
Mary sticks her tongue out at Violet as a mild taunt for her failed attempt with George. As Violet leaves, Mary decides on chocolate ice cream, and they have a bit of a chat about coconuts.
I'll take chocolate. With coconuts? I don't like coconuts. Say, Brainless, don't you know where coconuts come from? From Tahiti, the Fiji Islands, the Coral Sea.
And George's utter lack of any sort of tact aside, this is actually quite good in terms of establishing George's desire for exploration and to see more of the world. It's a motivation that will persist throughout the film, but also remain firmly out of grasp. We also get a nice little moment where George is busy talking about his desire to be an explorer, and we see Mary expressing her interest in George.
Is this the year you can't hear on? George Bailey, I'll love you till the day I die. I'm going.
Oh, that was so
I love a little kid.
Oh, what a confession.
Oh, stop, that is so cute. Oh, it's his ear he can't hear out of.
We also see that for George, the grandeur of exploration holds the grandest appeal, the idea of things that are often considered successful in terms of a grand explorer.
I'm going out exploring someday. You watch. And I'm going to have a couple of harems, and maybe 3 or 4 wives. Wait and see.
Am I alone in that I didn't know what a harem was until, like, high school? Granted, I also didn't talk about having 3 or 4 wives, but still. Mary's reaction is an understandable disdain, and this is why it's important to understand that girls mature faster than boys. Little boys are, frankly, gremlins. Oftentimes, even into their 20s, they will not learn how to behave nowadays. See basically anything ever trending on TikTok. George piles coconut Mary didn't want onto her ice cream and then is yelled at by Mr. Gower, who has active, severe tears in his eyes. And now, the drinking we saw upon entering makes a little more sense. Something has clearly cut him rather deeply. The unfortunate part of the reality is, again, that H.B. Warner was apparently so severe a method actor, and, well, we'll get there. Young George's actor actually does quite a good job, it's worth mentioning. He picks up the telegram meant for Gower, informing him that his son Robert has suddenly died, rather unfortunately, of influenza.
No, sir.
I don't think that guy's doing so good. Oh.
Ah.
That would explain that.
Oh, my bad.
What happened to him?
Oh my god.
That's why he cried.
Oh, it's beginning. Bro, I gotta hold it together a little bit longer. I'm already getting sad.
Oh. That makes a lot more sense.
Yes, it does.
Or the Spanish flu, which at this time in history had a really bad case sweeping throughout the nation and did unfortunately leave many young men and women dead. So now Gower's drinking makes a little more sense. He has suddenly and without warning lost his son. After all, this is a telegram, meaning his son was not likely nearby, elsewise you can imagine this would be a visit, not a ye old text kind of chat. Mind you, back at this point in history, influenza could kill someone in as much as 3 days, or even as little as a few hours, meaning he might have, best case scenarios, known a couple of days before his son's death that he was even sick. And if the boy were younger, there likely would have been no warning whatsoever. That is a really, really bitter pill to swallow. And then come into work. George goes to offer if he can do anything for Mr. Gower, being a caring lad, though he likely understands there's nothing to be done. He is a good kid and he wants to help. He picks up the medicine capsules Gower was preparing, and he tells George to deliver the medicine. George, at a glance, realizes Gower has accidentally put poison in the capsules and attempts to warn him of this, who is obviously in no mood to have a child employee confront him on anything, really, at the moment. Left without a clear idea of what to do, George looks around and spies a sign saying, "Ask Dad, he knows," and having no better inclination of what to do, decides the sign has a decent point, and runs off to find his father. As he reaches his father's business, the Bailey Building and Loan, he spies Mr. Potter's driver and carriage up front, which George is wary of because rich assholes aren't really known for their kindness towards children. As George goes to his father's office, he is stopped by Uncle Billy, a repeated character throughout the movie, who stops him, and there's even a neat bit of character dialogue.
Fast there, Captain Cook. Where you heading?
Gotta see Papa, Billy.
Once again, affirming George's love for adventure and exploration to a degree romanticized by novels and magazines. I miss when we had good character work like this. It really takes so little. Uncle Billy is informed that he's got a call from the bank examiner, and Billy checks his fingers where we see several pieces of string are tied. Which, if you don't know, is how old people used to put reminders on their cell phones before cell phones. Well, this also sets up Billy as a bit of a bumbler, somebody forgetful, albeit loving and well-meaning. It really is amazing what you can do with character given a careful story, and I consider it the truest of shames that this film originally flopped at the box office, because it is a bloody fantastic film. We even see a crow as he opens up his office, which, again, is going to be a slight thing, though it's not particularly important. Apparently, the crow is a rather famous bird that Capra uses in almost all his works, and I don't know, it's a thing. It's a bit weird, but it's a character thing, and it's fine. It really doesn't detract from anything. It's just a thing. George heads inside the office, where his father is asking Potter for a 30-day extension, which Potter is vehemently shutting down.
Just a minute, son. Just 30 short days. I'll dig up that 5,000 somehow.
We even see the degree to which Potter is determined to be respected and intimidating, to the degree he will not even move himself up in his little chair here.
Shut me up, shut me up.
Pop.
Just
Have you put any real pressure on these people of yours to pay those mortgages?
We get a nice bit of character work for Mr. Bailey and Mr. Potter given this conflict.
Times are bad, Mr. Potter. A lot of these people are out of work.
Well, foreclosed.
I can't do that. These families have children.
They're not my children.
But they're somebody's children, Mr. Potter.
Are you running a business or a charity war?
Well, all I'm
Not with my money.
George attempts to listen politely until Potter insults his father.
Can't begin to spend all the money you've got.
Oh, I suppose I should give it to miserable failures like you and that idiot brother of yours to spend for me.
He's not a failure. You can't say that about my father.
Mr. Bailey hurries to tell George to leave, but even in the subtitles, there's a nice little nod to the fact that this does not go down without angering him slightly, pointing out that Potter embarrassed him in front of his son.
Humiliated me.
Dejected and defeated, George heads back to the shop as Mr. Gower is getting a call inquiring about the medicine delivery that George was supposed to make.
The medicine should have been there an hour ago. Be over in 5 minutes.
Gower pulls George into the back and slaps him on the head, something actually far more harrowing given this was apparently rather real. Even Mary flinches as George tries to stammer his reasoning.
Trixie, break it away!
Whoa!
Break it away! Don't you know that boy's a
Stop it, stop it, stop it!
Break it away!
Ah! Oh no, hey, you're not allowed to children, old man.
Don't you know that boy's a
Everyone's not allowed to do such
What kind of Trixie, break it away!
Oh my gosh!
Already I didn't deliver him right away. Don't you know that boy?
Oh my god, he's bleeding out of his ear!
Break it away! Don't you know that boy's a
His ear's bleeding.
Gower, having just lost his own son, views George as being neglectful, and realizes that this is something that may cause the premature death of another son, so his rage is also a personal affair.
Don't you know that boy's a
My sword here.
You lazy loaf.
Finally, as George is brought around, bleeding from his bad ear, he explains what happened.
Gower, you don't know what you're doing. You put something wrong in those capsules. I know you're unhappy. You got the telegram and you're upset.
And we see remorse and pain come over Gower at the idea that through his own pain and neglect, he nearly poisoned a child. Something that will come up much later.
Oh, Mr. Gower, I would never tell anyone.
Damn, man.
Holy shit.
I'm gonna grab that fucking heartstring and shove that shit.
George, stop this man from killing somebody. He's about to poison somebody. He's so stressed out and over his son, he was about to poison somebody by accident. And George, he stopped the day. Saved the day. He saved his brother. He saved the guy. Hey, George is a good kid.
Don't hurt my story again.
Oh my gosh. So he just saved the day. Was he gonna give those pills to someone? Like, is this a prescription? Deliver them to...
Yo, that kid saved lives.
Oh my gosh. This is terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Gower, I would never tell anyone.
Oh.
Oh my god!
But this is our second example of George sacrificing something personal to help somebody else and do the right thing. Sacrificing his left ear for his younger brother, and now far more directly angering his boss to the point of abuse to save him from a horrible mistake. One which Gower quickly realizes and apologizes to George for. They embrace as Gower laments, and we fade out, picking up several years later. Travel, a fundamental piece of discovery. We don't always think about how vast our own galaxy is, or how badly it would suck to be stuck in one place for extended periods of times. Maybe on the lower levels of Coruscant. But for the most part, I'm free to leave anytime I want. But being stuck in one place, well, that'd drive anyone crazy after so long. George, now 20, is being sold a travel case by Joe, as he rejects Joe's initial pitch, talking about how he wants a much larger case.
Look, I want a big one.
Because, again, George's hope is to become an extreme adventurer and traveler, and obviously that means he's going to need a big boy suitcase as opposed to a small travel case. Now, while that does carry just a little bit of the energy of a guy who buys a $200 fishing rod just to go out and fish once and never again, that level of excitement and energy very much fits George. The angels, watching him as our framing device, freeze the shot to tell both Clarence and the audience that this is adult George Bailey. It's also worth mentioning that this is apparently the first time this kind of freeze frame was done in wide cinema. Always neat to learn where later tools of the trade spring from. Joe then pulls out a massive case, which George is immediately pleased with, and asking the price, at which point Joe informs him that it was picked out, paid for, and set aside by Mr. Gower.
No charge.
That's my trick here, George. Sounded like you said no charge.
That's right.
What's my name doing on it here?
Little present from old man Gower. Came down and picked it out himself.
He did? What do you know about that? My old boss. Isn't that nice?
In what is one of the film's only examples of George actually being rewarded by somebody he helps. George stops by Gower's shop, now booming in business with plenty of kids, to thank him for the gift and repeat his wish on the little machine.
I wish I had $1 million. Hot dog!
As he heads out, making his way to a cattle boat, likely due to its extremely cheap method of transportation, he is greeted and wished farewell by several members of the bank.
Avast there, Captain Cook! You got your sea legs yet?
Parlez-vous français, mister? Hey, send me some of those picture postcards, will you, George?
Hey,
You know
George,
the kind.
don't take any plug nickels.
Hey, George, your suitcase is leaking.
Hey, Ernie.
And we see that George is a well-liked figure, known by the town and close with a good handful of people. George greets the local policeman and cabbie, asking for a ride home like a tourist, to which they all smile and oblige as Violet struts up the street in a dress that is... it's doing what it's designed to do, I suppose. After a bit of ogling, we move on to the scene at home, with George celebrating Harry's graduation, to the degree that it shakes the ceiling to the irritation of his mother and their home care worker Annie, who is honestly just a very sweet and endearing character.
George, that's why all children should be girls. Well, if they were all girls, there wouldn't be any... Oh, never mind.
The boys come down, cheering and celebrating in a boisterous mood, and we even get a moment solidifying Annie's place in the family.
Annie, my sweet, have you got those pies?
If you lay a hand on me, I'll hit you with this broom.
Annie, I'm in love with you. There's a moon outside.
It was a different time in film, okay? We get a bit of banter between the family as George excitedly announces this is his last dinner in the family house. Not that in that moment he intends to never dine with them again, but he's obviously very eager to set out and strike on his own success, something that defines manhood. We hear that Potter has been put on the board of directors at the building and loan, likely how they avoided a much bigger issue with money beforehand. Because this is how Potter does. Overtakes and beats down other businesses until he is the only game in town. Yay, greed and corporate monopoly. Harry invites George to come over to the graduation, which he originally declines, stating that he'll be bored to death. Harry leaves, slightly upset, but not seriously. Their father warns Harry not to drink at the night of his celebration, and Annie comes in spitting some wisdom, as she will do periodically.
Boys and girls and music. Why do they need gin?
His father laments that they can't afford to send both boys to college, and George explains that they've come up with a loose plan to cover the family business and to get their education.
You know, George, I wish we could send Harry to college with you. Your mother and I talked it over half the night.
We have that all figured out. See, Harry will take my job in the building alone, work there for 4 years, then he'll go.
This already puts forth the fact that both boys are not going to just abandon the family, even though they both hold higher aspirations. We also get the acknowledgement of George's responsibility as an older sibling.
Pretty young for that job.
Well, no younger than I was.
Well, you were born older, George.
Something many older siblings might actually have to feel, given unstable circumstances. We also hear of George's desire to design and build buildings, his ambition as an architect.
I suppose you've decided what you want to do when you get out of college.
Oh, well, you know what I've always talked about. Build things, design new buildings, plan modern cities. All that stuff I've been talking
Still
about.
after that first million before you're 30, huh?
No, I'll settle for half that in cash.
Now, mind, this is said, assuming George is 20 or so here, that in 1926, the Roaring Twenties, in a time of great economic growth and expansion, so the idea of designing those grand buildings and structures did hold a great allure, and it was the rising time for many young architects, much like being a real estate agent in the late 90s. Of course, unbeknownst to George, the stock market crash is about to kick off roughly in October of 1929, leading to the Great Depression, and so even before his chosen profession and career wouldn't have been especially fruitful, but in the end it becomes a moot point as he's not going to end up getting there, but we'll get there in time. Besides, we'll see as Act 2 of this film is on the way that George doesn't really get to have those nice big things he thinks he wants. George's father floats the hope that he might remain at the building and loan, and we see conflict in George instantly. On one hand, he wants to help support his father and his family. Who wouldn't? Especially as the old man is in such a state to be asking him, he likely does realize the building and loan is one of the largest shields that this town has against somebody like Potter. On the other hand, George is a highly bright and budding young man, already having held off for 2 years, while his other friends his age are getting their start, and his dreams are too big to be confined to one city, let alone a small town like Bedford Falls.
I know,
But he wants more. He wants to travel the world.
However, we really aren't hit too hard yet as we get just a bit of levity in the form of Annie eavesdropping on George's answer.
Well, Annie, why don't you draw up a chair? Then you'd be more comfortable and you could hear everything that's going on.
I would if I thought I'd hear anything worth listening to.
You would.
Something this film will revisit is the idea of a charming, albeit slightly nosy motherly figure. Anyone who's ever had an extroverted or even chatty mother or grandmother can understand what this is to deal with such people, good-minded and intentioned though they be. This is the most substantial scene we have with Mr. and Mrs. Bailey and Annie, and yet in all that, it is extremely charming and heartfelt. I can believe these are characters and realistic people who have lived real, sometimes hard lives, loving and close and managing their lives without being very well off. Without insulting his father directly, George tells him that he intends to work on grander things. He wants to avoid a life spent counting nickels and dimes, an easy sentiment to anyone who grew up even lower middle class or has ever missed a meal. When you've gone without in your childhood, you want to avoid going without in your adulthood. It is the same manner in which you'll occasionally see somebody raised in wealth and affluence rejected so as to be closer to and love their children, as they felt detached from their own parents in their youth. His father explains that in his own way the building and loan is important, and George obviously feels guilty, even though he's well within his right.
Pop, I didn't mean that, it's this business of nickels and dimes and spending all your life trying to figure out how to save 3 cents in a length of pipe. I'd go crazy.
You know, George, I feel that in a small way we're doing something important. It's satisfying a fundamental urge. It's deep in the race for a man to want his own roof and walls and fireplace.
George compliments his father, and we get another brief reprieve in the form of Annie before George decides he's going to check on Harry's party anyway.
I think you're a great guy. Boy, did you hear that, Annie?
I heard it's about time one of you lunkheads said it.
He's greeted by a friend who's graduated college now, and even as George is just taking his first steps into higher education and is somewhat left behind. George is even greeted by, I presume, the principal of some sort of authority figure on the board of the school, and while it's easy to miss, George is actually being congratulated for coming up with a plan to have the gym floor separate to reveal the swimming pool underneath.
Welcome back, Mr. Partridge. Putting a pool under this floor is a great idea. Saved us another building. Now,
This move apparently having saved them $1 million on the construction. I wouldn't even begin to know how to see if that actually makes sense. I don't know, unless the spacing is somehow an issue, I don't know how it would be, but I'll just take the film's word on that because I don't know enough to contradict it. Marty comes over and urges George to dance with Mary, who is now 18, who, much like her childhood declaration, has never forgotten her affection for George, even though they apparently aren't a thing before now at any point. Mary is busy fully ignoring some poor bastard and then beams at George as he approaches. George sweeps Mary away for a dance.
Well, I'll be seeing you.
Well. Now, to get back to my story, see? Hey, this is my dance.
Oh, why don't you stop annoying me?
Well, I'm sorry. Hey!
George and Mary briefly speak as a dancing contest of the Charleston kicks off. Because, yes, of course it's the Charleston. They begin dancing as the judges eliminate people, and George breaks it down in the finest display of white people ever moving. Then the guy Mary shafted speaks to a classmate who has a key to open up the floor onto the pool, and in a form of vengeance activates it.
And did you further know that George Bailey is dancing right over that crack? I've got the key.
As George and Mary just so happen to not see it, dancing near it, and of course, eventually starting to fall in, but they don't stop attempting to dance in what might be one of the earliest classic displays of rom-com goofiness that I'm aware of.
Wait, that is so cute. I'm Can you imagine? They're still dancing in there. Well, that man just really cemented them falling in love.
They're still dancing.
Still dancing.
Oh my god, I love them. How cute.
Something that apparently Jimmy Stewart was semi-known for before this point. We find it out, picking up on George and Mary walking home, singing Buffalo Girls, Won't You Come Out Tonight, wearing borrowed clothes from the school. This is a scene that's going to bond them, and also draw home a bit of absurdist humor.
Tonight, can't you come out tonight? Can't you come out tonight? Buffalo girls, can't you come out tonight?
Everything from their awkward singing to George's absurdly oversized pants and Mary's robe speaks to this. So we see, despite George's initial reluctance, he's obviously taken with Mary. Something brought home as they warbled tone-deafly at each other.
Dance by the light of the moon.
Oh my gosh, they're singing together. That's adorable.
Should have seen the commotion in that locker room.
There's some flirting as Mary attempts to leave the door open, as it were, for George.
You know, if it wasn't me talking, I'd say you were the prettiest girl in town.
Well, why don't you say it?
Well, I don't know. Maybe I will say it. How old are you, anyway?
18.
18? Well, it was only last year you were 17.
Too young or too old?
I didn't like that.
Okay, now mind, in the 1920s, I believe where this film takes place was in New York. The consent for marriage was at 16, not 18, so while Mary is certainly not too old by today's standards, getting married at the age of 16 is now seen as stupid. It really wasn't as far-fetched for that point in time, or certainly not to be promised by a relationship between two parents. So for her to say that she might be too old means that George might have already expected her to be promised or even married to somebody by this point. In fact, my own grandparents were married at 17 when I believe it was in 1969. Yes, it was uncommon by then, but it did still happen at times. My point being, this isn't as creepy as it might initially seem whenever you consider it in the context of the time. Alternatively, it could also mean that Mary's asking if she looks older or younger than 18, which actually more explains George's response.
Oh, no. Just right. Your age fits you.
Now, to focus on the actual meat of the scene. George expresses his appreciation for Mary's growth, and there's some foot and mouth that happens.
Yes, sir. You look a little older without your clothes on. I mean, without a dress, you look older. I mean, younger. You just... Uh-oh.
George accidentally steps on the trail of the robe, and Mary saves him with some corny playing at the moment.
By train, please.
A pox upon me for a clumsy lout. Your caboose, me lady.
You may kiss my hand.
Hmm.
You may kiss my hand.
Old school flirting.
I know,
they're
fun together. As I was lumbering down.
He's gonna make him work a little more.
Please marry each other and have kids already.
I love the way they flirt.
Mm-hmm. So wholesome.
Your caboose, me lady.
You may kiss my hand.
I just love them. They are so cute. I can't take it.
Your caboose, me lady.
You may kiss my hand.
Wait, they're so cute. Oh my god. They're so cute.
And that's all good and fine, emphasizing George growing more infatuated with Mary, and Mary being more towards loving George instead of being in love. I draw a distinction here, and I'll explain it as briefly as I can. In love is an infatuation, and it fades over time. When you imagine your crush being in love, they never fart or argue or snore, for example. Love has to deal with those things, and love is far more a deliberate choice and commitment. Something that's actually rather nice to kind of take note of whenever you consider things like marriage. George moves in for a moment, and Mary awkwardly turns, growing suddenly nervous, and resumes singing. George picks up a rock to break the window of an old abandoned house, and Mary stops him, expressing her love and appreciation for the building, finding it full of romance. I mean, I can't say, as I find every basically haunted house ever unromantic, but hey, to be fair, if it were fixed up nicely, it could be a lovely little home. But the idea is something of a local legend, that if you throw a rock and break a bit of glass, your wish can come true. A bit goofy, sure, but most local legends are. George expresses his distaste for the house.
I'd like to live in it.
In that place?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't live in as a ghost. Now watch, there's right in the second floor there.
And then shatters a pane of glass as Mary inquires about his wish, to which we see George, the ever-far dreamer, respond.
What'd you wish, George?
Well, not just one wish, a whole hatful. Mary, I know what I'm going to do tomorrow, and the next day, and next year, and a year after that. I'm shaking the dust of this crummy little town off my feet, and I'm going to see the world. Italy, Greece, the Parthenon, the Colosseum. Then I'm coming back here and go to college and see what they know.
We see George go on about his hopes and dreams for the future, exotic travels, gaining information.
And then I'm going to build things. I'm going to build airfields. I'm going to build skyscrapers 100 stories high. I'm going to build bridges a mile long. Well, you going to throw a rock?
Not only does this reinforce George still holds on to those boyhood dreams, but we see that Mary isn't as actually amused by his grandeur and vision. This is important, as there are certainly couples thrilled by the idea of success and expense, or difficult things being brought closer, but Mary is not such a person. Mary isn't as interested in George, the brilliant explorer and builder, as she is George Bailey, the person. There is also, quite possibly, a small voice in her head reminding her of George's intention to hold several wives. Or at the very least, she fears those grand adventures he speaks of might mean he will leave her behind. She's not rude about this. She doesn't talk down his dreams or belittle him and tell him he's foolish. Instead, she simply picks up a rock, chucks it at the house, breaks a window, and makes her own wish. Apparently, they had a skilled pitcher on set to make the actual shot, expecting that Donna Reed wouldn't strike this hit. But apparently, it was unneeded, as she just nailed this shot herself. Just a nice bit of trivia.
Hey, that's pretty good. What'd you wish, Mary?
Mary makes her own wish, and while we don't hear it, it is doubtless some version of allowing her and George to be together. He inquires as to her wish, and she smirks, walking off singing softly, to which George eagerly pursues and repeats.
By the light of the moon, what'd you wish when you threw that rock?
We then get a scene in which George Bailey offers to lasso the moon for Mary, because in case I hadn't mentioned it about 20 times already, George Bailey is a man reaching beyond the bounds of what most would think was reasonable.
What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down. Hey, that's a pretty good idea.
He doesn't want to give Mary a huge house or a piece of jewelry, he offers her the moon. And Mary, now assured that this piece of George's desire does not include leaving her behind, accepts quite calmly.
I'll give you the moon, Mary.
I'll take it.
George then babbles on about how Mary could swallow the moon before catching himself.
See? And the moonbeams would shoot out of your fingers and your toes and the ends of your hair. Am I talking too much?
At which point the neighbor who is smoking on his porch interjects, making again rather a humorous reprieve from the tension.
Am I talking too much?
Yes. Why don't you kiss her instead of talking her to death?
How's that?
He encourages George to kiss her, and George gives a retort, and we get a frustrated line from the neighbor.
Why don't you kiss her instead of talking her to death? Why don't you kiss her instead of talking her to death?
Yes!
Want me to kiss her, huh?
Oh, youth is wasted on the wrong people.
Something that carries a bit of small-town charm to it, and is something that doubtless anyone who's up in age has felt before. As George calls all to him, Mary tries to pull George away before dashing off herself, causing the robe to come off. Welcome to another reason this film will probably end up being cancelled someday. George goes to toss Mary her robe, but stops himself. Realizing that the girl he's developing serious feelings for is stuck naked in a bush, and he decides to tease her a bit.
This is a very interesting situation.
Please give me my robe.
This is a very interesting situation.
Please give me my robe.
Man doesn't get in a situation like this every day. I've read about things like this, but I never...
Shame on you.
Shame. Shame. I'm going to tell your mother. Oh, wait,
I'll call the police.
They're way downtown. They'd be on my side, too.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting situation.
Please give me my...
We even get a nice bit of comedy thrown in here.
Shame on you. I'm going to tell your mother on you.
Well, my mother's way up in the corner there.
George is about to make a deal with Mary, likely something like a kiss in exchange for the robe, or something of that nature, when his uncle comes down the street in a hurry. George, realizing something is wrong, quickly tosses Mary the robe, and it's revealed that George's father has had a horrible stroke. George, of course, being a good and loving son and older brother, decides to attend to it. Again, George is directly denied something he wants because life has decided to hit him over the back of the head a little, and it's a motif that won't be growing old anytime soon. In fact, this is actually one of the more mild cases. Romance. Seems an easy prospect. Boy meets girl, or being meets being, I suppose. They click, discuss sand, they fall in love. Happily ever after, right? Turns out real life isn't as clean as that. Almost ever. We fade out again, picking up on the building and loan, and we see George settling a matter with the board, a black armband now around his bicep, something done to signify mourning or grief for recently departed loved ones. And we get a pretty good picture of what exactly happened to dear old Dad. We even get a direct lines towards the sacrifices that George has made recently.
To know that George gave up his trip to Europe to help straighten things out here these past few months.
And so once again, George has been snagged back from following his grandest of dreams. But it could be worse. Sure, he's been delayed far longer than would be ideal, but he's finally going to be able to go to college, get that education, and manage to go after that higher-than-life dream of his. As George begins packing things up, they all discuss the next successor of the building and loan, and Potter raises his objection to the building and loan being needed at all. And because we've had dinner with George's father before and seen how ruthless a man Mr. Potter is, we can instantly see how dangerous this motion is. Billy raises his objection, and while the board nearly waylays the vote, in the end, the voting is pushed forward, and George and Billy, as executive board members, are asked to step aside and abstain.
Wait for what? I claim this institution is not necessary to this town. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to dissolve this institution and turn its assets and liabilities over to the receiver.
In that case, I'll ask the two executive officers to withdraw. But before you go, I'm sure the whole board wishes to express its deep sorrow.
The board member expresses his condolences for George's father to both of them, and then Potter interjects.
It was his faith and devotion that are responsible for this organization.
I'll go further than that. I'll say that to the public, Peter Bailey was the building and loan.
Oh, that's fine, Potter, coming from you, considering that you probably drove him to his grave.
Peter Bailey was not a businessman.
He begins to insult the man, stating that he never had a mind for business, and pulls up one of their open business loans as an example.
That's what killed him. Oh, I don't mean any disrespect to him, God rest his soul. He was a man of high ideals, so-called. But ideals without common sense can ruin this town. Now, you take this loan here to Ernie Bishop. You know, that fellow that sits around all day on his brains in his taxi, you know.
In this case, belonging to Ernie, the cab driver we saw earlier. And Potter says that the bank denied his loan, and now the Baileys have gone and approved it.
I happen to know the bank turned down this loan, but he comes here, and we're building him a house worth $5,000. Why?
Well, I handled that, Mr. Potter.
Why?
Okay, I know. Late 20s. But fuck, man.
A house worth $5,000.
Which is implied to be a pretty decent house.
Yeah, that's implied to be a good house.
Fucking
Not
hell,
insane,
man.
But good.
Yeah.
You could barely build a shed for $5,000 nowadays.
You couldn't buy the land for the shed for $5,000. Which, man, I wish I could get a small family home for $5,000 a day. I wish I could get half a small family home for that. Now, the price is just over $80,000 in today's money, and while the home Ernie's getting is no manor, he's still able to get himself a nice little home that Potter utterly disapproves of. Potter goes on to repeatedly insult the way that Peter Bailey did business, and George stops himself, rounding on Potter for this.
And all because a few starry-eyed dreamers like Peter Bailey stir 'em up and fill their head with a lot of impossible ideas. Now,
Why, in the 25 years since he and Uncle Billy started this thing, he never once thought of himself. Isn't that right, Uncle Billy? He didn't save enough money to send Harry to school, let alone me. But he did help a few people get out of your slums, Mr. Potter. And what's wrong with that? Well,
This is a pivotal scene for George, as it's the point when his values and morals, if you prefer, and desires are going to be forced to clash, and unfortunately for him, this is going to be where something of a motif in his life takes place.
You said that what'd you say just a minute ago? They had to wait and save their money before they even thought of a decent home? Wait for what? Until their children grow up and leave them? Until they're so old and broken down that do you know how long it takes a working man to save $5,000?
We even get character work through this, as we can see that with Potter, George's pleas are falling on deaf ears. He cares for nothing and no one outside of himself, something echoed by George's father earlier.
Oh, what's eating that old money-grubbing buzzard anyway?
Oh, he's a sick man. Frustrated, sick in his mind, sick in his soul if he has one.
He is classically written as an irredeemable villain, and it's rather funny, because normally I attribute this to a negative trait. I find it to be something boring to have somebody so inexplicably and unrevocably dark as Mr. Potter, but in this particular case it works because Potter is the personification of the idea that I suppose one might call careless capitalism, which I say at the risk of sounding like a social undergrad. That's not meant as a critique of democracy or capitalism as a system, at least not to say it's worse than any other form of government and business, but rather Potter represents the risk of callous businessmen as a people. Capitalism and its birth of a system isn't what gives the men like Ford the idea to put their workers in horrible debt, just as the idea of communism as a system doesn't give anyone the idea to shoot people dead in the streets. They're both merely a tool greedy men might use, much as they'll be use anything at their disposal, and that's truly what Mr. Potter is. He's more a personification of business and greed, a greed so all-encompassing that there is no place for something like compassion or empathy. Ironically, and I say this as a writer, his backstory as a character isn't especially important. Not that Disney might not try to give him one later on, but it could be interesting, but it doesn't really matter if Potter pulled himself up by his bootstraps for years or was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He is a black veil of inevitable greed seeking to crush the American dream.
Just remember this, Mr. Potter, that this rabble you're talking about, they do most of the working and paying and living and dying in this community. Well, is it too much to have them work and pay and live and die in a couple of decent rooms and a bath?
George and Potter butt heads harshly, and we see George begin to pick up the metaphorical sword left by his father, as the beast ultimately devoured Peter Bailey, but it wasn't itself defeated.
Well, I've said too much. You're the board here. You do what you want with this thing. There's just one thing more, though. This town needs this measly one-horse institution, if only to have some place where people can come without crawling to Potter. Come on.
Potter chews on his thoughts as George storms out, urging the board to do what is right, though not showing much faith in that they will do it. As George prepares to leave, Potter gains control and influence over the room.
Sentimental hogwash. I want my motion acted on.
As the room explodes into discourse, because we see that his words did indeed have a pronounced effect on the room, he and Uncle Billy walk out. Uncle Billy declaring that they'll be put out of business and that George has to leave.
Hey, you'll miss your train. You're a week late for school already. Go on.
What's going on in there?
Oh, never mind. Don't worry about that. They're putting us out of business. So what?
As George puts on his coat and hat, a board member exits, excitedly telling them that they voted Potter down. They want to keep the building and loan going, to which everyone celebrates. Then the other shoe drops.
And that's the best part of it. They've appointed George here as executive secretary to take his father's place.
And we see George's face fall. He managed to save his father's company, but it will only be at the expense of his schooling, his hopes, and his already delayed dreams. George even resists.
I'm leaving right now. I'm going to school. This is my last chance. Uncle Billy here. He's your man.
But George, they'll vote with Potter otherwise.
George, you gotta stay. This sucks.
Vote with Potter otherwise.
Oh, that's not fair. He didn't go.
Not only that, he gave his school money to his brother Harry and sent him to college.
Oh shit, no, you can't let that happen. Ugh.
Yep.
But he gave his school money to his brother Harry and sent him to college. Harry became a football star.
And George stops. This isn't going to be the last time we see George break a little, because he knows there is no longer really a choice for him. And the choice he would not have made is the one he is stuck with. So, we hear through the angels that George doesn't go to college, instead giving the money he had saved to Harry, who goes in his stead, becoming a football star and growing in his education, while George holds down the family fort, so to speak. In case you were worried that George is done being kicked and abused by life, we're still only roughly a half hour or so into this film, about 25% of its total runtime, and it's not going to be lightening up anytime soon, so strap in, everyone. We pick up 4 years later, with George and Billy waiting for Harry's train to pull in. Harry has agreed to take over for the building and loan while George travels. Sure, he can no longer be a grand explorer or the architect that he was hoping to be, at least not right away, but he can at the very least see more of his country through a job.
Now, there are plenty of jobs around if somebody likes to travel. Look at this, here. Venezuela oil fields. Wanted, man with construction experience. Here's the Yukon. What, right here. Wanted, man with engineering experience.
It's a compromise, and he's gotten to save his father's business and help out the town. That's worth a compromise, surely. Besides, little brother's coming in, fresh from his education, and ready to fill the shoes that George has been holding for 4 years now. And George certainly hasn't given up on his dreams entirely.
You know what the 3 most exciting sounds in the world are?
Uh-huh. Breakfast is served, lunch is served, dinner...
No. Anchor chains, plane motors, and train whistles.
Peanut.
It's important to understand what those 3 sounds represent to him. Travel, exploration, and the chance at grander things. All open to him now because Harry is finally coming back from college. They welcome Harry off the train. Harry and George have a moment greeting each other, and then they start to head home before Harry reveals a surprise. During his years at college, he's managed to rope himself a fine wife, Ruth.
Ruth Dakin.
Ruth Dakin Bailey, if you don't mind.
That's right. Well, I wired you I had a surprise. Here she is. Meet the wife.
We see George stare, a bit dumbstruck. Sure, some part of this is likely due to the gravity of the news, but there's also just a little bit of envy. Harry got to go to college that George wasn't allowed to do, and now George has been slightly surpassed in life by his baby brother, now married to a well-off woman. Sure, he's happy for him, but there's also just this little sting to the gut any older sibling is likely to feel as a younger sibling surpasses them in life, at least in one area or another. I'm an older sibling myself, and I have had moments not terribly unlike this. George manages to pull himself together, joining in the good-natured ribbing.
What's a pretty girl like you doing marrying this 2-headed brother of mine?
And then, once again, the other shoe drops.
Well, I'll tell you, it's purely mercenary. My father offered him a job.
Oh, we got you on the job.
And George, once again, stops. Because of course, Harry can't be intending to work both his new profile job and managing the building and loan. But that was the agreement. That was the promise. What does this now mean for him? Harry, being a good little brother, sees George's internal debate in that moment and runs over to try and explain.
George, about that job. Bruce spoke out of turn. I never said I'd take it. You've been holding the bag here for 4 years, and... Well, I won't let you down, George. I would like to... Well, wait a minute. I forgot the bags. I'll be right...
No. Maybe it is time to close the business, though. But then the whole town, everyone has to go to party.
He was waiting for him to take over. Yeah, so and he could go, you know. Oh, I feel so bad for George. He never had a good time.
And now, somehow, this makes it even worse for George. He's been struggling for 4 years in a position he didn't really want, at least not at the expense of his own dreams, and now he's been holding out for baby brother to return, only now he's done so, but with a much finer job on his fishing line, so to speak. And sure, if George were to insist, Harry likely would fill in at the building and loan. Of course he would. But can he really do that to his baby brother? Can he kill a great chance for a young man and his newly married wife simply because of the arrangement? Moreover, can he really trap his brother in the place he himself is so desperate to get away from? We see once again George doesn't really have a choice. He loves his baby brother too much to pin him this way, and so George already knows he will have to sacrifice even his compromised dream so his little brother can have a fuller life with his wife. He puts on a small smile and goes to speak to Ruth about this opportunity for Harry.
George, that's all Harry ever talks about.
Ruth, what about this job?
Oh, well, my father owns a glass factory in Buffalo. He wants to get Harry started in the research business.
Well, is it a good job?
Oh, yes, very. Not much money, but good future, you know.
Yeah.
Harry's a genius at research.
And then we pick up at the Bailey home as they are celebrating taking a picture. In celebration, hosting far too many people inside a home, a moment that will be familiar to many of you around this Christmas time, presuming this video has come out before then.
They told me they fixed it. It's not my fault.
We see Uncle Billy has had 1 or 12 too many, and honestly, there's a good bit of comedy there.
Where's my hat? Where's my hat? Oh, thank you, George. Which is mine? The metal one. Oh, thank you, George. Oh, boy.
Also, fun fact here, as Uncle Billy goes off screen, we hear singing and then a crash.
I'm all right.
This is not scripted. Apparently, a stagehand accidentally dropped a tray, and the actor thought quickly, improving that Billy had fallen into something, and apparently James Stewart's chuckle here is rather genuine. Not that that's super important to the plot or the story, I just think that's a neat little detail of filmmaking. It's amazing how many last-minute changes or fuck-ups can change a film. Another such example, did you know that the whole reason there's a trench run in A New Hope is because the Death Star had a casting fucky, which led to it not sealing quite right? Crazy to think about. George spends a moment smoking while we hear a train whistle. Again, the sound he associates with freedom and exploration, and he looks over the brochures he was leaving through earlier, lamenting that he will now not have the chance to use them after all, but committed to ensuring that Harry at least can live his very fullest life. Mrs. Bailey comes out and talks to George for a moment, giving her approval of Ruth and telling George that Mary has returned from school, non-so-subtly pushing George to go talk to her. George attempts to reject this, stating that Sam, his old school friend, is crazy about her. But Mother retorts that Mary isn't nearly so crazy about Sam.
Can you give me one good reason why you shouldn't call on Mary?
Sure, Sam Wainwright. Yes, Sam's crazy about Mary.
Oh, she's not crazy about him.
Well, how do you know? Now, would she discuss it with him?
No.
Well, then how do you know?
Well, I've got eyes, haven't I? She lights up like a firefly whenever you're around.
Oh.
It's a very touching scene, and we drive home how much Mom actually does care for her boys and wants to see them both happy. Something George has likely been struggling with for the past 4 years.
Besides, Sam Wainwright's away in New York, and you're here in Bedford Falls.
And all's fair in love and war.
Well, I don't know about war.
We even get a slight repeat of the scene with Uncle Billy, though not to the same degree, and George walks towards Mary's only to about-face and walk away, his courage or desire failing.
You'll just point me in the right direction. This direction. Good night, Mrs. Bailey.
George walks into town, catching Violet's eye.
Excuse me.
Oh, wait a minute.
I think I got a date. But, stick around, fellas, just in case, huh?
We'll wait for you, baby.
Violet takes George's arm and begins to lay it all on a bit thick.
Where are you going?
Oh, I'm probably end up down at the library.
Georgie, don't you ever get tired of just reading about things?
She manages to rope George in for a night, and George pitches the idea he finds romantic and sweet.
Oh, I'd love it, Georgie. What'll we do?
Let's go out in the fields and take off our shoes and walk through the grass.
Huh?
Then we can go up to the falls. It's beautiful up there in the moonlight. And there's a green pool up there, and we can swim in it. Then we can climb Mount Bedford and smell the pines and watch the sunrise against the peaks, and we'll stay up there the whole night, and everybody will be talking. There'll be a terrific scandal. What about?
Violet immediately shows her distaste, showing the difference between someone like her, who wants a type of grandeur, and someone like Mary, who found immense joy in simply walking and talking with George. Even though Violet is outwardly the type of girl who might appreciate some of what George wants in terms of ambition and goals, it is Mary, the sweet, humble girl next door, who is actually significantly better for him. Neat little bit of character work there, and deserves to be noted.
You gone crazy? Why, walking the grass in my bare feet. Why, it's 10 miles up to Mount Bedford.
Okay, just forget about the whole thing.
This is brought home when the small gathering mocks George for this. Because the reality is that George isn't actually about the huge expanse or exploration as much as he wants to think that he is. Rather, he likes the freedom and appreciation of the world around him, brought forward in this moment by his appreciation of those green lakes and the moon. Sure, he wants to explore, build, and see massive cities, but he mostly wants to explore and enjoy whatever he finds. He wants his million, but only as a means to the ends of exploration and freedom. Meanwhile, a girl like Violet sees wealth and position as things having value by their own merits. George leaves in a huff and ultimately winds up at Mary's house, and she excitedly opens the window to call down to him.
What are you doing? Picketing?
Oh, Mary. I just happened to be passing by.
Yes, so I noticed.
Mary can see George is conflicted, and draws him in with a playful conversation.
Have you made up your mind?
How's that?
Have you made up your mind?
About what?
About coming in. Your mother just phoned and said you were on your way over to pay me a visit.
My mother just called you? Well, how'd she know?
This is actually very sweet. She's not upset that George is clearly a bit out of sorts or that he's not excited as she is. She is simply excited to see him. Mary heads down to welcome him in, stopping to check her hair, before pulling out a painting she's made of George lassoing the moon and putting on a song of Buffalo Girls on the record player.
You know. Oh, what? She made that?
Aww.
It's like, you know.
She drew him. Aww.
I love that shot.
She's kind of all set up. She's so excited. Oh, she's so cute.
Stop it. Oh my god, I love it. I made me emotional, I don't know why.
Oh, that is so cute.
Oh, are you kidding me? They have to end up together.
Mary has held on to these things, even after 4 years, making it plenty clear just how special that night was to her. Of course, George is male, and so we'll see none of this as a clear sign. George struggles with the gate, an utterly human moment, and showing that he's not entirely sober. He comes in, expressing his surprise that Mary's back home.
Go back to New York like Sam and Angie and the rest of them.
I don't know. I guess I was homesick.
Homesick? For Bedford Falls?
Yes. And my family and everything.
Emphasizing his growing disgust and resentment at being stuck at home, while Harry gets to go do what he wants. George takes note of Mary's painting and takes it to be more mocking than the homage it's meant as.
Some joke, huh?
And were he in a brighter state of mind and less intoxicated, he might appreciate Mary's effort here, but as it is, all he sees is a reminder of the dream that will now forever be out of reach, and he can no longer pursue the desires of his heart. He loves Mary, but feels that she's obviously going to wind up with someone like Sam. He wants to leave, but he has to stay to make way for Harry. What few things George found excitement in and what his chances were are now slipping away, and so he's become somewhat bitter, spurred on, of course, by the drink. George walks in, missing Mary's signs utterly, and they show her disappointment, thinking George disinterested as opposed to utterly distracted. There's an awkward moment of silence, and Mary attempts to kick into the song playing, catching George off guard.
What's the matter? Oh, yeah.
Come on, throw the poor girl a bone.
What's the matter?
He's just so... Yep. Yeah, he's so depressed about... He knows his whole future.
George checks his watch and does the classic about to leave move, only for Mary to try and head him off.
Well,
Nice about your brother Harry and Ruth, isn't it?
oh, yeah, that's all right.
George responds with a touch of anger,
Don't you like her?
Well, of course I like her. She's a peach.
and she takes his resentment and anger, assuming it's aimed at marriage and romance.
Oh, just marriage in general you're not enthusiastic about.
No, marriage is all right for Harry and Marty and Sam and you.
She thinks this is George meaning he has something against her, rather than he feels trapped and crushed in his life. Because, of course, how would she know what he's struggling with? As the tension mounts, we get a brief moment of levity in the form of Mary's helicopter mother.
George Bailey, what's he want?
I don't know. What do you want? He's making violent love to me, Mother.
You tell him to go right back home, and don't you leave the house either.
He's making violent love to me, Mother.
Come the fuck on, man. George hears that Sam is intending to call Mary, and this sparks an argument between them.
You know, I didn't come here to...
What did you come here for, then?
I don't know. You tell me. You're supposed to be the one that has all the answers. You tell me.
Why don't you go home?
That's where I'm going. I don't know why I came here in the first place. Good night.
Good night.
George storms out as Mary goes to answer the phone, dejected and a little bit annoyed. In a moment of anger, she smashes the record, and you can't help but feel for the poor girl who threw herself utterly out on the line. Mary answers the phone, and George re-enters, having left his hat behind. We see the idea spark in Mary to possibly win over George's interest, so she greets Sam with a little bit more enthusiasm.
Hee-haw. Hello, Sam. How are you? Oh, well, that's awfully sweet of you, Sam. There's an old friend of yours here, George Bailey.
Sam responds brightly and asks for George as Mary and her mother briefly argue.
He doesn't want to speak to George, you idiot.
He does so. He asked for him. George.
Hi, Sam.
Well, George Baileyovsky. Hey, a fine pal you are. What are you trying to do, steal my girl?
Sam urges them to get on the extension, and that sparks one of my favorite little bits in this film.
Mother's on the extension week. I am
not. Dude, like, this movie's really good.
I am not.
They step in, more aware of each other's presence in a page right out of every romance film ever.
I'm not even paying attention to him. I'm paying attention to them in this moment that is happening.
Hang up the fucking phone. Hang up.
Yeah.
This close.
But there's a reason for it to have lived on for so long. Sam begins talking about an idea his father has taken over, making plastics out of soybeans, and is planning to put a factory outside Rochester. And George urges Sam to put the factory near Bedford Falls.
Well, I don't know. Just, why not right here? You remember that old tool and machinery works? Well, you tell your father you can get that for a song, and all the labor he wants, too. Half the town was thrown out of work when they closed down.
Which not only has become something of a connection to home for Sam, but also provides work and income for the town folk. Sam urges both of them to put their money into his company's stock and offers George a job.
And George, I may have a job for you. That is, unless you're still married to that broken-down building and loan.
And this is something of a double sting. Sam is getting a lot of what George wants, and he can't even accept the chance that his old friend is giving him, despite the plan that they've made. George is married to the building and loan. More and more opportunities are flying through George's fingers, and he can't even pretend to grab at them. Sam is urging Mary to push George on the deal, and they lean in, nearly kissing. George snidely snaps at this moment, declaring he doesn't want to be trapped, and he feels this is being sprung around him. We can even see that his anger scares Mary slightly, causing her to cry.
Now, you listen to me. I don't want any plastics, and I don't want any ground floors, and I don't want to get married ever to anyone. You understand that? I want to do what I want to do. And you...
But at this point, George sees this, and he embraces her as an apology, acknowledging his anger had no place being directed at her. They kiss, whispering each other's names in a moment of passion, which apparently Jimmy Stewart was actually rather terrified for, as he didn't know if he could do any justice to something like this after his own struggles in the war, and so this scene was largely unrehearsed. I will say that I kind of like that the kisses are passionate, but not picturesque. It's rather an intense moment. And as the scene descends, it's clear George has started to move back from his anger, which, again, never had any place being directed at Mary. They say that hard times make hard men make easy times make soft men, and soft men make hard times. A vicious cycle. But panic doesn't really work the same way. Panic comes quickly, seemingly out of nowhere, and is as violent as a wild kinwrath. We pick up on their wedding day, and we see that despite an extremely difficult start, they got to the point where things really did work out for them, ending in a loving marriage. As the couple exits the top floor of, I believe, the Bailey home, they are assaulted with rice by their friends and family. Mother's Mary is desperately unhappy, even as Mr. Gower is in attendance. They climb into Ernie's cab and leave to go off on a honeymoon, because finally something has gone at least a little right for George and Mary.
If either of you two see a stranger around here, it's me.
Hey, look, there's somebody driving this cab.
Sure, George didn't have his grand life or education, but he did wind up married to the girl who's loved him since they were kids, and they are happy. A solid win. And they even get to enjoy a nice little honeymoon as George appears to have saved up a little cash.
Where you going on this here now, honeymoon?
Where are we going? Look at this. There's the kitty, Ernie. Here, come on, count it, Mary.
Oh, I feel like a bootlegger's wife.
I thought perhaps this was Mary's dowry, but from what I could find, dowries were already pretty much well on their way out by the 1920s, and so that would be unlikely, especially considering this is not a particularly well-off family. Ernie makes a light joke as he drives them off, and we see George and Mary excitedly kissing in the back, lost in the love and thrill of a new marriage. They have been given the gift of champagne by the police officer Bert, and it's odd that I'm just now questioning if that's where Sesame Street got the names for those two, and now I can't shake the idea. George, as it so happens, begins celebrating the idea of what they could do together.
We're gonna shoot the works. A whole week in New York, a whole week in Bermuda, the highest hotels, the oldest champagne, the richest caviar, the hottest music, and the prettiest wife.
Now, obviously, George is speaking some hyperbole here, but the point is this is no small sum of money. In fact, their $2,000 would be closer to $47,000 today, and things, even adjusted, were considerably cheaper back then. So this is no small amount of money they are going to be able to celebrate with. And they're going to go on a little trip together before buying a little home for their lives. Very, very sweet. Glorious 1932, where viewers might remember is some 2.5 years after the stock market crash. Wonder if that's a problem. As they begin to leave, they stop near the bank, which is being raided, and a panic sets in as people are hurriedly withdrawing whatever cash they have.
I've never really seen one, but that's got all the earmarks of being a run. George.
Of course, something funny's going on. Something that's going to keep him in the town. He's never going to get out of this fucking town.
George, realizing this is going to spell disaster for the building and loan, runs inside despite Mary's protests. As George runs to the gate, the town stops and looks at him in silence. George inquires as to what is wrong and heads into the front to see that the gate has been closed. He unlocks it and walks in, trailed by the rest of the town. Uncle Billy is, essentially, hiding in the back, seeking comfort in drink, as it turns out the bank has called their loan, and Billy gave all the building and loan had, which didn't begin to fully cover all their debt.
Well, how does a thing like this ever start? All I know is the bank called our loan.
When?
About an hour ago, I handed over all our cash.
All of it?
Every cent of it, and still was less than we owed them.
Holy mackerel!
And then I got scared, George, and closed the doors.
So now, the building and loan is without a penny in liquid assets, and a bunch of very angry and scared people in the lobby. Then, because things can always be just a little bit worse, Potter calls to mock George.
Oh. George, there is a rumor around town that you've closed your doors. Is that true? Oh, well, I'm very glad to hear that.
We even hear Potter use the pretense of care and basic concern to mock him further.
George, are you all right? Do you need any police?
Police? What for?
Well, mobs get pretty ugly sometimes, you know.
And then Potter begins talking about how he is covering the bank.
I am going all out to help in this crisis. I have just guaranteed the bank sufficient funds to meet their needs. They will close up for a week and then reopen.
Just took over the bank.
So we see yet another domino in the ever-dwindling stack falls to Potter's wealth and influence, making it even more vital that the building and loan cannot shut down, even during this scary moment. Brought home as Potter drops his other hammer.
I am willing to guarantee your people, too. Just tell them to bring their shares over here, and I will pay 50 cents on the dollar.
Oh, you never miss a trick, do you, Potter? Well, you're gonna miss this one.
If you
So he is offering to let anyone who has an account with the building and loan, but can't get their money out due to them not physically having the money, can bring their shares over to him and get half of what it's worth. And as horrifying as this sounds, the reality is that this is something done by mega corporations when small businesses struggle, and you want to be sympathetic to the people. For example, most people agree it's better for your town and your business to buy locally instead of going down to Walmart. But when the paycheck is small and Walmart is selling your basket for $1 less per item, it's hard to convince yourself to be community-focused over the needs of you and your family. That's the issue many of these people here are in. They likely understand it would be wrong to go to Potter, let alone lose half their savings in the building and loan. But if the opportunities are lose half of your wealth or starve, they'll take the former, as I imagine most anyone would. Of course, Potter's personal interest in this isn't altruistic. If everyone draws their shares out of the building and loan, the firm will naturally be forced to shut down. They kind of need customers in order to function, and Potter is well aware that if he becomes the only game in town, so to speak, he can charge whatever he damn well likes for buildings and interests. Again, the Walmart monopoly strategy. George, of course, sees this and calls him on it, and Potter ends the conversation with a threat.
If you close your doors before 6 p.m., you will never reopen.
George spends some time thinking, and a neat little detail that most people caught, but if you didn't, is that he looks directly at the quote from his late father. All you can take with you is that which you've given away. He tries to figure what he's going to do, and he really doesn't have an answer, but to keep the doors locked and ignore the mob certainly isn't it. So he decides he's going to try and reason with everybody. George walks out to the sea of expectant faces and tries to make sure things stay calm.
Just remember that this thing isn't as black as it appears.
Only then for the other shoe to drop as the police are here, making it seem to people as if George is going to force them all out, and the panic begins to set in.
I have some news for you, folks. I was just talking to old man Potter, and he's guaranteed cash payments to the bank. The bank's going to reopen next week.
But, George, I got my money here. Did he guarantee this place?
Well, no, Charlie, I didn't even ask him. We don't need Potter over here.
And I'll take mine now.
Because panic is sadly a universal expression, and it catches on fire even easier than California's forests. George tries to calm everyone down and explain.
You're thinking of this place all wrong, as if I had the money back in a safe. The money's not here. Well, your money's in Joe's house. That's right next to yours.
Because, of course, George has been putting his money back into the town with every chance he gets, unlike Potter, who acquires personal wealth.
And in the Kennedy house, and Mrs. Maitland's house, and 100 others. You're lending them the money to build, and then they're going to pay it back to you as best they can. Now, what are you going to do, foreclose on them?
Sadly, the fear leaves little consideration in some people, unable to look past the narrow scope of their own desires.
I got $242 in here, and $242 isn't going to break anybody.
And Tom, for that's who this is, cannot think any further than the end of his own immediate needs, and damn if that isn't a clean realization for some people in the current age. Well, as long as he's got his, who cares? As long as she got her bag or he made his bank, who cares about the cost to others? But he does have his rights, and George offers him a contract where he will get his money after the time elapsed.
Here you are, you sign this, you get your money in 60 days.
60 days?
Well, now that's what you agreed to when you bought your shares.
Tom!
But this causes panic to set in, even within the building and loan.
Tom, did you get your money?
No.
Well, I did. Old man Potter will pay 50 cents on the dollar for every share you got.
50 cents on the dollar?
Yes, cash.
Well, what do you say?
No, Tom, you have to stick to your original agreement. Now, give us 60 days on this
Okay,
thing.
Randall.
Are you going to Potter's?
Better to get half than nothing.
Because hysteria is the very worst kind of herpes, spreading rapidly among the common folk. Then they reveal to the crowd Potter's offers to buy out the shares. The crowd begins moving out en masse, and George heads over to head them off, appealing to whatever sense of decency or self-preservation might be found.
Now, listen to me. I beg of you not to do this thing. If Potter gets a hold of this building and alone, there'll never be another decent house built in this town. He's already got charge of the bank, he's got the bus line, he got the department stores, and now he's after us.
George does a decent job of explaining the danger of selling out to Potter, something that's just as vital for the audience to grasp as it is the crowd.
Well, it's very simple, because we're cutting in on his business, that's why. And because he wants to keep you living in his slums and paying the kind of rent he decides. Joe, you had one of those Potter houses, didn't you? Well, have you forgotten? Have you forgotten what he charged you for that broken-down shack?
Guys, who were here for y'all when y'all had nothing? Who was here for you guys? Y'all want to run to Potter?
Fucking hell, dude. I don't remember the last time you and I were, like, so fucking invested in a movie. And we just, like, shut the fuck up and watched it. Like, we haven't said a word for, like, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And while it's a small touch expositional, there's also something the movie has done a good job of showing that needs to be explained. Not least of all because panicking people are really, really stupid. George begs them to hold out as everyone begins decrying their own demands for money, and the need overwhelms them at the moment that Mary steps in.
My husband hasn't worked in over a year, and I need money.
How am I going to live until the bank opens?
I got doctor bills to pay. I need cash.
I can't keep my kids on faith. I've got to have it.
How much do you need?
No.
I got $2,000. Here's $2,000. This will tide us over to the bank reopens, all right?
But that's their honeymoon money.
Hey!
Oh my gosh.
It's supposed to be their honeymoon.
Yeah.
They're gonna give out their cash.
I got $2,000.
Yeah, he's gonna give it out. Jeez, poor Mary though, her honeymoon.
I know, that was all their money.
I hope she's okay.
How much do you need?
Hey, here's $2,000. This will tide us over to the bank reopen.
That's for their honeymoon. Oh my gosh, they're always sacrificing.
How much do you need?
Hey, I got $2,000.
No. That's gonna go pretty quick, 2,000. I hope you got enough people.
We see that this money, which would have started their honeymoon and new lives together, is now going to go to a town full of frightened people. The theme of sacrifice once again rearing its massive head. George begins to pay the offer out for the money, asking people how much they need until the bank can reopen. Tom going first. But because Tom is playing these self-focused cards, he takes all he's worth.
How much do you need?
$242.
No, Tom, just enough to tide you over until the bank reopen.
I'll take $242.
Ed comes up asking $300, but when George pleads...
Ed?
Well, I got $300 here, George.
All right, now, Ed, what'll it take until the bank opens? What do you know?
Ed agrees and amends himself.
Well, I suppose $20?
$20. Now you're talking.
We then get the next person, Mrs. Thompson.
Miss Thompson, how much do you want?
But it's your own money,
Now,
George.
never mind about that. How much do you want now?
I can get along with 20, all right.
$20.
And this is something I really think we have to draw just a nice bit of attention to. George has a chance to help save his town. And what kind of man is he? It's not a matter of the cost, only the practicality. He doesn't care that he's giving away his money, save the fact that he will later regret not having to spend it on his wife. But he doesn't care about the loss out of his pocket. Only the town full of people relying on him and are able to survive.
Never mind about that. How much do you want now?
I can get along with 20, all right.
$20.
We then get Mrs. Davis coming up.
You can, that's okay. All right, Miss Davis.
Could I have $17.50?
Bless your heart, of course you can have it. You got 50 cents?
And this is a neat little thing. Not only is it $2.50 less than others were asking for, but apparently it was also the idea of the actress to ask for a slightly uneven amount, making it clear she is recognizing the lengths that George is going to, and prepared to at least try and meet him by asking nothing more than needed to survive. It's a beautiful short bit of sentiment, and I think it really is a sweet touch on the film here, celebrated as George kisses her cheek in thanks. We then cut to the building and loan, closing up as 6 o'clock strikes. George holding up the building and loan's final $2. Worth pointing out because had Miss Davis asked for even the standard 20 everyone else was asking to get by, they would not have cleared it. Just a nice bit of something to take notice there, nothing massive. The entire crew celebrate making it through the rush as they move the incredibly meager liquid assets into the safe. But instead of pain or even bittersweet behavior, the survival is celebrated brightly. They pass out wedding cigars, forcibly dragging George back into the moment to realize he is married and his honeymoon has been rather forcibly cancelled.
Folks, wedding cigars? Oh, wedding. Holy mackerel, I'm married. Where's Mary? Mary!
There's even a cute bit of habit taking place.
Look, will you get my wife on the phone? She's probably over at her mother's.
Mrs. Bailey is on the phone.
I don't want Mrs. Bailey. I want my wife. Mrs. Bailey. That's my wife. Here, I'll take it in here.
Mary tells George to come to the hotel, revealed later to be the old home she procured for them.
Oh, is it the window breaking house? Oh, did she find?
Oh, is that broken one?
No way.
And we see Ernie and Bert hanging up travel posters outside, despite some protests.
Hey, this is the company's posters, and the company won't like this.
How would you like to get a ticket next week?
Because George really is a staple of the town at this point, and damn it all if the man doesn't deserve some kind of affection from his friends on his wedding night. Not least of all for having just staved off Potter's reach for another day.
Who wants to see liver pills on their honeymoon? We want us romantic places, beautiful places, places George wants to go.
George walks up and sees the words bridal suite have been taped on the door of his old rundown house, and Ernie meets George, acting as a bellhop or receptionist, whichever you care for, I suppose. Point being, these men are assisting Mary and George to give him the closest thing to the honeymoon he's earned and been hoping for that they can. It's obviously short of the real splendor of the thing, but it's really immaterial to the love and the effort being made for him here, because as it turns out, it's quite possible to value the non-material, even if it cannot be measured. Something echoed over and over in George's life, despite his attempts to achieve a form of wealth, and something that may become poignant in the end. We see Mary waiting by the fireplace, the chicken slowly being roasted with the help of a record player, and get a good grasp of this absolute state the home is in. The stairs are basically gone. What remains is covered in cobwebs. The wallpaper is falling off, and the roof could be best described as patchy, while almost every single window is smashed out. But George looks at Mary, who awaits him nervously. He avoids some leaking water, and he gets a view at all the effort made for him. The posters, the fire, the food, the candles, and above all of them, his lovely bride. And he feels an appreciation for all he has, small as it might seem. George and Mary kiss as the record hits the end of its recording, while the two men outside begin singing softly.
I love you truly.
I'm gonna fucking cry, bro.
I am, dude. I'm tearing up.
Not the guys outside fucking singing for him. Fuck.
Alright, movie. Tapped. Tap it out. What the fuck happened to cinema?
You married the right one. They are perfect for each other. They are perfect.
I love you truly.
Oh my god, guys! Oh my god! They have live music!
This is what I wished for.
She just loves him so much.
Surprise for him.
Yeah, that's better honeymoon here. Oh my god. Oh, she's really love him.
Yeah.
And honestly, I defy anyone to say that they don't find this the least bit moving. Mary and George kiss as Mary reveals that this moment is the one she wished for when she broke the window. True trad wife goals.
This is what I wished for.
Also, just a lovely bit of acting from all parties involved. We fade to black on the moment, and it's happy. Despite the horrors and risks of everything George and Mary have been through, they are happy. Call it what you will, but call to adventure, the opportunity of a lifetime, the 1 in a million shot. Plenty of men get that moment. That one moment, that one shot. And if you're desperate for it, the greatest danger is that you'll never venture for a second look, and you'll miss the string attached to the damn thing. We jump ahead several months to see George and Mary celebrating with a man named Martini, who will later be revealed to be the owner of a bar. If you name your boy after a drink, I'm not sure what you expect to happen. But Martini is celebrating as, with George's help, he is the proud owner of a little family home. It's even driven home how big a chance this is for him and his family.
I own the house. Me, Giuseppe Martini, I own my own house. No more we live like a pigs in this Paris field. One more.
George and Mary are helping them load up the everything, quite literally, down to the goat, so they can help Martini's family move into their new place. A beautiful display of George's continued involvement in his community, as well as being a generally happy moment for the people of Bedford Falls. They drive to a place designated as Bailey Park, where we see rows and rows of simple, albeit lovely, suburban homes, quite recently built. This is where George has been busting ass to house the residents of Bedford Falls, and it draws attention to his earlier line in the bank.
Well, your money's in Joe's house. That's right next to yours. And in the Kennedy house, and Mrs. Maitland's house, and 100 others.
We can also see and celebrate just how big a deal this is, as the crowds of surrounding families have come to help Martini and his family move in and welcome them. Because, you know, it used to be a neighborly thing to welcome your new neighbors. We even get a quick shot of Sam Wainwright, George's old friend, quietly admiring him from afar, giving his classic hee-haw greeting. What's interesting is that George actually shows a touch of displeasure at this, likely having feeling a bit of resentment towards Sam. It's even the small implication that there may have at one point been some sort of disagreement between him once George married Mary. However, it's quickly pushed aside and they focus on welcoming the new family into their home.
Sam Wainwright.
Oh, who cares? Bread, that this house may never know hunger.
Everyone claps and we move over to Mr. Potter. Potter's money collector is expressing concern over the growth of George's housing development.
It's no skin off my nose. I'm just your little rent collector. But you can't laugh off this Bailey Park anymore.
And the dent it's putting into Potter's own collections. We learned that 15 years ago the land was largely undeveloped. Some 5 or 6 homes. Plenty of room left to hunt wildlife.
15 years ago, a half a dozen houses stuck here and there. There's the old cemetery, squirrels, buttercups, daisies. I used to hunt rabbits there myself.
But George has gone and turned it into a full-on suburban expanse, with dozens of beautiful little homes.
Look at it today. Dozens of the prettiest little homes you ever saw. 90% owned by suckers who used to pay rent to you.
It's even reached to the point where people are referring to George as the David that slew Potter's Goliath. And Potter expresses that every Bailey was a fool who never made a dime out of that field, where they should have.
Locals making with those David and Goliath wisecracks.
Even though they know the Baileys never made a dime out of it.
You know very well why. The Baileys were all chumps.
Of course, we see that's not strictly true. While George has few liquid assets, the fact is he is actually creating value.
Every one of these homes is worth twice what it cost a building and loan to build.
We see that, albeit slowly and perhaps fiscally unrealized, George is a decent businessman. Potter seethes over this development and begins to make a plan to deal with George Bailey. We then jump over to Sam and Jane. Sam explains that they're stopping by to look over the new factory, which of course Sam built here on George's recommendation. Sam explains that they're going on their way down to Florida and asks if George and Mary will join them. George says it's impossible, and Sam spends a little bit of time virtually gloating over his sense of wealth over George's fortune.
Still got the nose to the old grindstone, eh? Jane, I offered to let George in on the ground floor in plastics, and he turned me down cold. Aw.
They drive off, and George turns to his own car, reminiscing on the chances and fortune he's missed out on, some due to his own decisions, most out of his control. In anger and resentment, he kicks the door of his car, and we see just how robbed George really feels. From here, we find George in Potter's office, smoking a cigar. Likely a fine brand, though I confess I wouldn't have the faintest idea. Fanciest I get is my own brand of hand-rolled cigarettes, so what do I know? He compliments the cigar before sinking into the overly plush office chair, something that many people have noted actually makes George sit lower than Potter. It's a power move, one still used by certain people today.
Thank you for coming in, Jeff. That's more comfortable.
Potter begins his rather elaborate sales pitch, even putting on the very best impression of a person.
George, now that's just what I like so much about you. George, I am an old man, and most people hate me, but I don't like them either, so that makes it all even.
But the most important thing to note in this scene is this line.
Yes, I do, that I run practically everything in this town, but the Bailey building alone.
So we see that, as discussed, Potter is attempting to create a town monopoly, but that's been stopped by this tiny corner that George owns.
You know also that for a number of years I've been trying to get control of it, or kill it, but I haven't been able to do it. You have been stopping me. In fact, you have beaten me, George. And as anyone in this county can tell you, that takes some doing.
The odd thing here is that even if Potter is only attempting to worm his way into George's trust, he's not totally lying either. Much as he dislikes George, he does hold some begrudging respect for him. After all, it's impossible to deny the differences in resources between the two, and yet Potter has found himself somehow unable to crush the tiny little ant that is George Bailey.
Take during the Depression, for instance. You and I were the only ones that kept our head.
But we see that George isn't as easily bought as he might be. After all, he's had his whole life to see exactly what Potter is made of.
You saved the building and loan. I saved all the rest.
Yes, well, most people say you stole all the rest.
The envious ones say that, George. The sucker.
Potter points out that George is a young, largely stressed man, making around $40 a week.
45.
Sorry, 45. But we see that pride is still something of a sharp tack for George Bailey, understandably so. And Potter quickly lays out how George's funds evaporate.
45. Out of which, after supporting your mother and paying your bills, you're able to keep, say, 10 if you skimp.
Then Potter begins to bait his hook.
But George Bailey is not a common, ordinary yokel. He is an intelligent, smart, ambitious young man who hates his job, who hates the building and loan almost as much as I do.
And the sad thing here is he likely has something of a point. Sure, George may not think of it in exactly those terms, but there's doubtless some resentment towards the building and loan. It's the place that, by necessity, stole most of his life and his future. It's the reason he wasn't able to go to college, the reason he never got to travel, the reason he still can't leave, the reason he's struggling to make ends meet week by week.
A young man who's been dying to get out on his own ever since he was born. A young man, the smartest one in the crowd, mind you. A young man who has to sit by and watch his friends go places because he's trapped.
And we can see, via Jimmy Stewart's rather great acting in this scene, just how affected he is by Potter's analysis. While we see George bristles at this breakdown, Potter then says he wants to hire George to manage his affairs, at what was then a staggering $20,000 a year.
I'll start you out at $20,000 a year.
$20,000 a year?
Sure, today that's hardly a great sum, but adjusted it would be equivalent to over $350,000 in today's money. Or as a certain clique of women might call it, the bare minimum. Jokes aside, this is obviously an offer that would greatly alter George's life, and is a chance he will never get doing what he's currently doing. He even drops the cigar in surprise, repeating the figure.
A year.
$20,000 a year?
And as if the money alone wasn't a tempting offer, Potter points out how much this would allow George to achieve all his life's goals.
You wouldn't mind living in the nicest house in town? Buying your wife a lot of fine clothes? A couple of business trips to New York a year? Maybe once in a while Europe? You wouldn't mind that, would you, Jones?
Would I?
George is clearly more than a little tempted by this offer, but the same chain that's always been around his ankle gives a little tug.
Well, how about the building and loan?
Oh, confound it, man. Are you afraid of success?
Potter breaks, and he throws a bit of a fit here. George pauses and stumbles, his heart torn between his perfect little life and the reality of what he's been doing for the past several years. Potter gives him a day to talk to Mary and think it over, and they shake hands.
You go on home and talk about it to your wife.
I'd like to do that.
Yeah, then in the meantime, I'll draw up the papers.
They even get some truly stellar acting on Jimmy's behalf as he realizes the devil he's just struck a bargain with.
Okay, Mr. Potter.
He even looks down at his hand, as if physically disgusted by the shake he's just given, wiping it off on his jacket as he slowly stumbles over his words, clearly shaken at the thought of having so nearly become Potter's man. Fuck, that symbolism's so good.
Holy fuck.
No, wait a minute.
Come on. Oh, you can't just do that.
Rewind that another 10.
Fuck, man.
Okay, Mr. Potter.
Fucking hell, man.
Holy shit.
How the fuck have I never watched this movie?
Holy shit, man.
Dad, come on, man. Think. Yes, wipe that. You see the way he was wiping it?
Wait a minute.
Hopefully Mary doesn't let him do that. Yeah, his hand is sticky and slimy. Yeah. Don't do it, George.
No, wait a minute here. Wait a minute. I don't need 24 hours. I don't have to talk to anybody. I know right now, and the answer's no. Doggone it.
George finds himself now fully aware of the devil he's facing, and he unleashes his angers and frustrations on the man.
You sit around here and you spin your little webs and you think the whole world revolves around you and your money. Well, it doesn't, Mr. Potter. In the whole vast configuration of things, I'd say you were nothing but a scurvy little spider.
He retreats home, Potter's word about all he could still have echoing in his ears, and even compares it to his own statements to Mary's back during the graduation celebration.
You wouldn't mind living in the nicest house in town? Buying your wife a lot of fine clothes? Going to New York on a business trip a couple of times a year? Maybe Europe once in a while?
I know what I'm going to do tomorrow, and the next day, and next year, and the year after that. I'm shaking the dust of this crummy little town off my feet, and I'm going to see the world.
He even spends time looking at the painting Mary did, now framed and hung on the wall, a symbol of his grand aspirations, now dashed and given away.
You want the moon? If you do, just say the word. I'll throw a lasso around it, pull her down for you.
Apparently his musings aren't lost on Mary as she wakes and begins softly singing the Buffalo Girls song again. George holds his wife and asks why she married him. It's important to take note of her answer here.
Why in the world would you ever marry a guy like me?
To keep from being an old maid.
That is to say, in order to avoid being single in an older age. Single millennials eat your heart out. But whereas we, and George, seem to take this as that Mary would have married any decent man, what she actually means, and the film will later confirm this, is that she wouldn't have married anyone but George, as he so totally was what she wanted. George laments that Mary could have married anyone, and she lets him know that she is pregnant.
George Bailey Lasso Stork.
You mean, what is it, a boy or a girl?
Mm-hmm.
And so the joy of this knowledge is able to overcome the sorrow and regret that was digging its way into George's life. But of course, this relief, such as it is only temporary. The struggles and the pain are not gone, only waylaid. We even get a bit of a montage, and we see Mary gives birth to a boy and a girl, and spends her day making the home fit for habitation, while George works his days away at the building alone, coming home to the same nearly fit for habitation house, dealing with the banister at the top of the base of the stairs that always comes detached. But life does not give George Bailey a chance to reflect on anything for too long. It's actually funny in some ways how many near misses there are in life. We have no idea how many times things nearly go horribly, catastrophically wrong. All it takes is just that one slight misstep, that one careless moment, which you've had 100 times and never mattered. And suddenly you're in true trouble. Potter's back at war with George, just in time for America to go to war with Germany and Japan. Everyone jumps in, serving their patriotic duty. With Mary and George's mother sewing in the Red Cross, Mary having 2 more babies but still finding time to run the USO, and Sam finding time to help build planes. Even Potter heads the draft board. We hear Bert the cop is shot and wounded in North Africa, while Ernie fights in France, both luckily surviving the war. Harry even finds a form of glory enlisting as a pilot and shooting down 15 enemy planes, saving 2 transports that were nearly destroyed by the enemy. And George, he's stuck right where he's always been, forced to stay and manage the chaos of Bedford Falls after being declared 4F unfit. This is something actually hitting heavier when you understand the sense of shame that might bring. Something another favorite movie of mine, Hacksaw Ridge, talks about.
Everyone I knew was on fire to join up, including me. There were 2 men in my hometown. Declared 4F unfit, they killed themselves because they couldn't serve. I had a job in a defense plant. I could have taken a deferment, but that ain't right. It isn't right that other men should fight and die, that I would just be sitting at home safe. I need to serve.
But George doesn't give in to pity or despair, instead jumping in to see where he can assist. He organizes air raid drills, he runs paper, rubber, and scrap drives, he attends his services, even weeping for those lost in the war. The pinnacle of a good American man who didn't fight but wanted to do all he could from home. And we move into Christmas Eve, which is going to serve as the start of our 3rd act. George celebrates with Ernie, and it's revealed that Harry is being awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his service in the war. A high honor, and something rightfully celebrated by his friends and family. George expresses no jealousy or regret, merely pride in his little brother, even though he likely does feel some inner regret at seeing his younger brother now so far outstrip him.
Gonna snow again.
What do you mean it's gonna snow? Look at the headline there. President.
I know, George, and it's one.
But he's not a man to belittle his brother, especially when America and her allies are coming out on top of the war. We even see Mr. Gower comes over happily, celebrating as they examine the papers together. Uncle Billy calls out the group arranging the banner as he heads into the bank, full of good cheer. But if you've been paying attention for the past, what are we at, hour and a half? You know that life does not allow a Bailey to stay happy for very long. George walks in celebrating and has a conversation with his baby brother, even chuckling over the fact that his mother got to have dinner with the president's wife. Meanwhile, we get our shot of the bank examiner, here to look over the building and loans papers for the past year. George lets Harry go and goes to handle some business, to which, against his will and hope, has become a staple of his life. Now, even to the degree of damaging the time he has to celebrate with his brother. Carter comes to George and moves to talk into business.
Congressional Medal of Honor. The president just decorated it.
Yeah, well, I guess they do those things. Well, I trust you had a good year.
Good year? Well, between you and me, Mr. Carter, we're broke.
Yeah, very funny.
This is not only a bit of world building on top of the plot and the world building around Harry's award, but also develops character for George, showing us the mindset he has remained in, putting the town before his money or his safety, and even gives some character to this brand new examiner, showing him to not take much interest in such things. Certainly not in the building or loans dire straits.
Although I shouldn't wonder when you okay reverse charges on personal long-distance calls.
George, shall we hang up?
No, he wants to talk to Uncle Billy. You just hold on there.
Now, if you'll cooperate, I'd like to finish with you by tonight.
We join Uncle Billy at the bank, writing a deposit check for $8,000 for the building and loans loan. Mr. Potter is wheeled in, and Billy takes a chance to gloat about Harry's award, snatching the papers out of his hand and rubbing just as much salt in Potter's wound as he can.
How does Slacker George feel about that?
Very jealous, very jealous. He only lost 3 buttons off his vest. Of course, Slacker George would have gotten 2 of these medals if he had gone.
Billy folds up the player and getting a shot in at Potter as he does so.
After all, Potter, some people like George had to stay at home. Not every heel was in Germany and Japan.
Of course, he's so excited he accidentally folds the deposit envelope into the paper he's just handed to Potter. Just as we heard from George, this is no small matter.
No.
Yep.
He's gonna lose his fucking mind, and this motherfucker is not gonna say it.
Oh, you son of a bitch. He just gave Potter the money.
What's he gonna do with it?
He's gonna cash it into his own bank. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no! Oh no, the money!
Not every heel
Don't lose
was
the
in
$8,000.
Germany.
No! Oh, he's so forgetful.
Good morning, Mr. Bailey.
He left the money there.
Shit. Oh shit.
Oh my Uncle Bailey, you're
He has
being
no
so
idea where the
close.
money is. God damn it.
What? The money! Wasn't it in there?
Good morning, Mr. Bailey. I guess you forgot something.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what are you doing?
Is he forgetting things? Or did he leave it over there? No! He left it in there. Oh! He left it in the newspaper. Give it back. Give it back. Are you joking?
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh my God. Oh God. No. Why? Shit.
The building and loan certainly does not have another $8,000 to cover its expenses. Still riding high on their local hero, Billy does not realize his mistake until he goes to the deposit and suddenly realizes he does not physically have the money with him, and panic begins to set in. This is where our real low point of the film begins, and it's gonna get much, much lower. Just as Uncle Billy frantically searches his pockets, we see Mr. Potter discovers the mistake that was made. This is something that actually goes unaddressed throughout the rest of the film, and that's certainly not a critique in mind, it's just that it's in Potter's character to pocket money like this, and it's not really something that needs to have a big resolution. It's simply known that in the mid to late 40s, you don't do that. The villain doesn't just get away with it. There has to be some type of consequence.
Absolute worst. I have not seen a villain this bad in a while. No sense of morality whatsoever, or any sort of gray area as to why they may be as bad as they are. This guy's just bad.
Just horrible.
Yeah.
And like he has the money the whole time.
Right. There's no reason for him to be this horrible of a person.
And it was actually one of the cited reasons for the film not doing so well upon release, which, by the way, we look at things today, is almost comical, given a movie like Joker makes its entire mark off of moral complexity and misery. But this was a different era in filmmaking. Mr. Potter watches as a clearly panicked and unsure Billy leaves the bank. And man, doesn't it seem contrived that Billy would suddenly be so forgetful and absent-minded? Well, no. Because they actually took care to introduce him and show over and over how regularly forgetful he tends to be. He needs reminders to help keep things straight. He ties string around his fingers to remember to do things, and even then forgets. George spends time straightening up with the bank examiner as Billy returns, frantically searching for the envelope that cannot turn up. Meanwhile, Violet asks George to speak with him. We see him give her a small envelope of some papers and compliment her on her desire to move away and start over.
If I had any character,
Well, it takes a lot of character to leave your hometown and start all over again.
Oh, no, George.
Here.
Don't.
No, here.
Despite her insistence that she doesn't have character worthy of what he's doing for her. Then he forces her to take some money, which we know he can't afford to give her. But as we've seen over and over, George is willing to make the sacrifice for others, even hiding behind the idea of it being a loan, knowing he full well doesn't actually intend to see Violet or call that loan in. Violet kisses George's cheek, and George checks on Uncle Billy, who has turned his office upside down in search for money, which of course is nowhere to be found. Billy waves George in to inform him of what happened, and George begins searching around the rest of the building alone for the envelope that they cannot begin to afford to lose. All the while, the bank examiner is getting shorter and shorter in patience. The tension in the scene is mounting rapidly. It's also worth mentioning here that none of the trauma or tension that's building is due to music or dramatic close-ups. This is all done purely through the situation, and it is a reason for a far more real form of dread and terror than what you will find in most films today. Like in the short film Whiplash, much of the tension and panic in the film comes from the brilliant performance of J.K. Simmons.
Were you rushing or were you dragging?
I don't know.
Start counting.
5, 6, 7.
In 4, damn it! Look at me!
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. No.
Perfectly encapsulating an overbearing perfectionist, cracking down on his students, invoking very real feelings of discomfort and anxiety in the audience. While this isn't nearly as high on the dramatic scale, the emotional scale of the scene rings through. With no other road to turn to, they begin to retrace Billy's steps in hopes of finding the envelope. Of course, we already know this will yield no results, and we cut to Billy and George back in his house, visibly more disheveled and panicked. We get a true desperation and even character work on the part of Uncle Billy.
Do you have any secret hiding place here in the house? Someplace you'd hide the money?
I've gone over the whole house, even in rooms that have been licensed. I lost a lot.
Let's break that down for a second. Billy is shown to be a bit of a bumbler, a good-meaning but simple man, loving but not exactly bright. And after the loss of his wife, he basically shuts down, locking up rooms and letting the world around him move more than he moves any piece of it. A sad but touching tale for a man who must have been deeply loved and in love with his bride. And perhaps this is the reason he's now so in touch with animals. Only he no longer has his wife, and has attached whatever sense of importance he has to the building and loan, only to mess that up, completely by accident, and now fallen on his own lowest point. Character work. Once upon a time we knew how to do that. George even begins grasping at Billy's lapels.
Maybe, I don't want any maybe. We've got to find that money.
I'm no good to you.
Uncle Billy, look, do you realize what's going to happen if we don't find it?
George's composure and patience have snapped until all that remains is the panic and pain of a man stretched far too long and cannot see a light at the end of that tunnel.
Listen to me. Do you have any secret hiding place here in the house? Someplace you'd hide the money?
And George begs for him to recall, but Billy, being fairly limited, is completely drained.
Listen to me. Think.
I can't think anymore, George. I can't think anymore. It hurts.
And now George begins to break in earnest. The first true cracks appear as he grabs his uncle and lifts him up, shaking him and demanding answers.
Where's that money, you silly, stupid old fool? Where's that money? You realize what this means? It means bankruptcy and scandal and prison.
It's because he did.
Money, you old fool. You realize what this means? Prison. That's what it means.
Oh my gosh.
Where's that money, you silly, stupid old fool?
Oh!
It means bankruptcy and scandal and prison. That's what it means. Where's that money, you silly, stupid old fool?
God.
One of us is going to jail. Well, it's not gonna be me.
Look, everything's falling apart.
Where's that money, you silly, stupid old fool?
Oh my God.
It means bankruptcy and scandal and prison.
Oh, it sucks to see him treat him that way. I feel so bad.
Where's that money, you silly, stupid old fool?
George, come down. We're going down.
Oh God, he's really falling apart now. He's losing it. This is what pushed him over the edge.
Where's that money, you silly, stupid old fool?
Oh. He's like, I gave up my whole life for this.
George leaves, angrily declaring he's not going to be the one who bears the brunt of this disaster, as he so often does, and Billy breaks down, sobbing.
One of us is going to jail. Well, it's not gonna be me.
We swoop over to Mary and the children with one of George's girls practicing on the piano while they are playing and decorating the house, clearly in the throes of Christmas excitement. George stumbles in sneezing, likely having suffered at least a little due to the cold, and he no longer has his overcoat or hat. Mary comes over asking if George managed to obtain the Christmas wreath, and George falls into a numb routine, almost moving on autopilot, his voice low and quiet, with anger born of the despair of the building and loan.
Yeah, just start.
Where Where's your coat and hat?
Left them at the office.
George falls into the chair as his younger son attempts to play with him, using his Father Christmas mask and putting tinsel in George's hair. The despair begins taking hold in earnest as George is on the verge of tears, examining the face of his child and forced to admit that he is so far beyond the scope of things that there is truly no hope. Mary begins chatting with George about the plans for Harry's arrival, only to stop and realize that her husband is falling to pieces.
Isn't it wonderful about...
Oh, God. Look at him, he looks terrible.
Oh my gosh, him like literally crying as his son throws tinsel on his head.
Falls silent as George snaps at his daughter while she practices, which obviously has nothing to do with the song or her need to practice, but as I'm sure most of you are aware, when you're exhausted or angry, things that were truly nothing and no more than a mild annoyance suddenly start to weigh on you like a pallet of bricks, and so the loving husband and father suddenly becomes a source of tension in his own home.
She keep playing that.
I have to practice it for the party tonight, Daddy.
Mom said we could stay up till midnight and sing Christmas carols.
Can you sing, Daddy?
Better hurry and shave.
Mary informs him that the families will soon arrive, and George quickly rejects the notion.
Families will be here soon.
Families? I don't want the families over here.
And Mary, starting to realize how truly troubled her husband is, pulls him into the kitchen. George's youngest son, blissfully unaware of his father's state of mind, as children so often are, makes the situation worse by continuing to follow along, tugging at his father's jacket, and demanding he be excused for a burp, in what may be one of the truest depictions of childlike behavior, to the degree that I'm not even sure this was scripted. In a desire to connect with his father and share life's journeys, his older boy mentions the neighbor's new car, unknowingly pouring salt into George's fresh and old wounds, and George snaps at the boy.
Hey, the Browns next door have a new car. You should see it.
Well, what's the matter with our car? Isn't it good enough for you?
Mary excuses him, and it's revealed that their youngest daughter, Zuzu, has gotten ill because she walked home in the cold without adequate clothing on. Like father, like daughter. She won a flower at school, and that takes most of her priority. They talk back and forth about it, George obviously concerned and not helped at all by his panic over the state of their world collapsing around him.
Sore throat or what?
Just a cold. The doctor says it's
The
nothing
doctor? Was the
serious.
doctor here?
Yes, I called him right away. Said it's nothing to worry
Is she
about.
running at temperature? What is that?
Just a tease.
George's worry combines with the years of frustration from his self-denial, and he begins to lash out at everything around him, the situation quickly moving him into a violent anger.
George, what's wrong?
Wrong, everything's wrong. You call this a happy family? Why do we have to have all these kids?
Dad, how do you spell frankincense?
I don't know. Why, ask your mother.
And this isn't the peak of this either. George walks away to go check on Zuzu and pauses as, just as has doubtless happened countless times, the top piece of the banister at the base of the stairs comes away, and for a split second he seems to consider throwing it in rage, but catches himself.
Oh, uh-oh. Is that the last straw? He's gonna lose it.
No, he's really been holding on for a while here.
While the dam is rapidly breaking, he is holding on to what little might exist to not drag his family down with him. And this is the peak of what has to be considered when we talk about men shouldering burdens for their family. Some few years ago, a popular short started doing the rounds, talking about men's pain, when a man spoke to a female writer about why she never explored the pains and struggle of men, and then explained that his family would much rather see him die than fall from his white horse. This is something that has not really changed in all the years of family dynamics, despite the rapid shift in social understandings. Despite a world that's trying to become fully more aware of men's mental health, the reality is, at least in the majority, fathers and husbands are not allowed to fall apart. They can struggle, they can seek advice, but to vent, to confide their fears, to admit to despair, that they are not allowed to do. George is perhaps the peak representation of this ideal. The reality is that he is far more on the cusp of dying in his saddle, so to speak, made all the worse because it's not really a question of working harder or trying something new. There is nothing George can do to fix this. He manages to master his anger and jogs upstairs to see his sick child. Zuzu lights up at seeing her father. Despite George's concern, he's not fully able to keep the harsh tone from his voice.
What happened to you?
I want a flower.
She attempts to get out of the bed, to which George stops her, the movement causing a few petals to fall loose from her flower.
Wait now, where do you think you're going?
Want to give my flower a drink?
All right. I'll give Dad the flower. I'll give it a drink. No, here.
Look, Daddy.
causing her pain, and so she urges her father to paste it, a young child have no idea how flowers actually work. George turns away and stashes the loose petal in his belt before returning the flower, putting it in the water glass. Finally, for a moment, he finds a way to be gentle with her, urging her to sleep and dream of the flower, and in her dreams it can become an entire garden.
I'm not sleepy. I want to look at my flower.
I know, but you just go to sleep, and then you can dream about it, and it'll be a whole garden.
It will.
One of the neat little things about this, aside from seeing the fact that George is actually normally a very loving father, is this echoes his grandiose manner of speaking and ideals that he first started with Mary many years ago, when he suggested lassoing the moon for her. As George heads back down, Mary answers the phone to speak to Mrs. Welsh, Zuzu's teacher, calling to check on her condition. While Mrs. Welsh means well, George is forcibly reminded of the plight his daughter was placed in, which brings the rest of the tumbling rock that is his life back up to the surface, and he takes the phone to berate the teacher.
Say, what kind of a teacher are you anyway? What do you mean sending her home like that, half naked?
Of course, his critique is unfair, and he's lashing out, just as he was before about the children in the house, and life has been beating the tar out of George for several years, and he's beyond his breaking point. While Mary senses George's anger and attempts to calm him down, George does not want to be calmed. He begins yelling, even challenging Mrs. Welsh's husband when he attempts to defend his wife.
Okay, that's fine, Mr. Welsh. Give me a chance to tell you what I really think of your wife.
George,
Will you get out and let me handle this? Two stupid, silly, careless people that send our kids home without any clothes on. You know, maybe my kids aren't the best.
Here comes everything to come unbottled.
Yep. That dam is cracking. George walks into the main room, and the dam begins to break in earnest as he snaps at each of his kids. Meanwhile, Mary witnesses the man she loves become a rage-filled being, even targeting their own children. And she is obviously torn. On one hand, she has always supported George, and on the other hand, feels the desire to protect her children. And who could blame the poor girl? She has no idea what he's dealing with or facing.
How do you spell hallelujah?
How should I know? What do you think I am, a dictionary? Tommy, stop that, stop it. Janie, haven't you learned that silly tune yet? You play it over and over again. Now stop it, stop it.
Understanding on some level that he shouldn't be angry with the kids, George moves over to what appears to be a small hobby nook for him, where he's built a miniature model of grand buildings and cities he one day hoped to erect. A symbol of all that was his grand ambition for his life. And as the hopelessness of his situation encapsulates him, he lashes out, smashing it.
Sorry, Mary.
I gotta take a break, man. Give me a second.
This is so sad, man.
Okay, George, you need to chill a little bit. This your family. You just scared the crap out of us, Dad.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Mary.
Sorry to your kids, too.
Janie, haven't you learned that silly tune yet? Now stop it, stop it.
No.
Janie, I'm sorry. You go on and practice.
No way.
I knew it. God.
Oh,
I feel so bad.
It's going to help.
No!
Oh!
Oh,
That's your family.
Janie, I'm sorry. You go on and practice.
Oh.
What do you want to know?
Nothing, Daddy.
Sorry, Mary. Janie, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. You go on and practice. Oh, Pete, I owe you an apology, too.
Oh, he needs a break. And then you end up hurting the people that you are closest to, your family, the wife, your kids.
Oh. Those are his dreams.
Now it quickly becomes apparent to both wife and children how truly angry Dad is, and they all grow silent, forcibly reminding those who grew up with an angry parent of their own lives. something that hits many quite hard and an almost too accurate portrayal, because mine, to a degree, Jimmy Stewart really was struggling during this filming. George slowly turns and sees his family, the ones he loves, looking on in silent fear, and he realizes he has become the terror in his own home, and regret quickly washes over him. But because of who he is, he cannot rationalize the situation enough to explain, and perhaps wouldn't want to if he could. So he apologizes, attempting to fix things.
I'm sorry, Mary. Janie, I'm sorry.
He apologizes to each of them, but it's clear that things have broken down.
Pete, I owe you an apology, too. I'm sorry. What do you want to know?
Nothing, Daddy.
This again strikes too close to home for those of us who had angry father figures.
What's the matter with everybody? Janie, go on. I told you to practice. Now go on, play.
Oh, Daddy.
But of course, there is not an easy way to put this cat back in the bag. As his daughter breaks down into tears, Mary rushes over to defend her children and accuses George, and she's not wrong to do so. While she doesn't understand their plight or how truly close to the edge George is, she simply saw a man who allowed his irritation and stress to carry over to the point of yelling at a group of children, who really did nothing more than be children. And we see George utterly break, realizing he has not only allowed the distress to be brought in, but has indeed waltzed in with it on a silver platter. He storms out, but his children begin to suggest praying for him. Because, we need to remember our setup, and all that introduction that was the wonderful, wholesome mess that we had, and Mary calls Uncle Billy. Which not only makes sense, but of course Uncle Billy would also be well aware of the struggle George is dealing with, and would be well aware of how close to the edge George truly is. I think there's one thing that may be even worse for people than panic, worse than hysteria. A panicked man will do the illogical and nonsensical, but not usually to the point of self-destruction. But a desperate man? Well, a desperate man will do damn near anything if he thinks he has to. And speaking of George, well, he's so far up Schitt's Creek he decided to make a deal with the devil and goes to Mr. Potter.
I need help. Through some sort of an accident, my company's short in their accounts. The bank examiner got there today. I've got to raise $8,000 immediately.
Fuck. No.
Called me up from your building and loan.
Actually, fuck you. The only man who could help him with any amount of money he's struggling with. Potter embellishes the situation because, of course, he already knows exactly how short George is, being directly involved.
Oh, that's what the reporters wanted to talk to you about.
The reporters?
Yes, they called me up from your building and loan. Could it possibly be there's a slight discrepancy in the books?
No, sir, there's nothing wrong with the books. I've just misplaced $8,000. I can't find it anywhere.
You misplaced $8,000.
Potter relishes in the chance to mock George for the possibility of gambling, even going so far as to accuse him of infidelity.
What have you been doing, George? Playing the market with the company's money?
No, sir, I haven't.
What is it, a woman then? It's all over town that you've been giving money to Violet Bick.
There's a quick throwaway line to George's attempt to reach Sam, which eventually comes into play later.
You come to me, why don't you go to Sam Wainwright and ask him for the money?
I can't get a hold of him. He's in Europe.
Well, what about all your other friends?
Well, they don't have that kind of money, Mr. Potter. You know that. You're the only one in town that can help me.
George relents to Potter's ego by assuring him he is the only one who can help George now, something Potter already well would have worked out, but loves to feel important.
I've suddenly become quite important.
Then he asks George for any type of collateral, and is likely surprising to no one, George has next to nothing.
Well, what kind of security would I have, George? Have you got any stocks?
No, sir.
Bonds? Real estate? Collateral of any kind?
Save for a life insurance policy, likely meant for Mary and the kids. A $15,000 policy.
I have some life insurance. $15,000 policy.
Yes, how much is your equity in it?
$500.
$500. And you asked me to lend you $8,000.
Nearly double the amount he has in debt. But of course, that's the policy, not the worth. And we find out his current equity is only about $500. So, as Potter twists the knife and quickly points out, George's worth adds up to about $500. Plus whatever few possessions he might own. and he's attempting to put together 8,000 just to break even. And then we get a horribly cruel line.
No securities, no stocks, no bonds, nothing but a miserable little $500 equity in a life insurance policy. You're worth more dead than alive. You love so much and ask them.
If this man tries to kill himself.
But I tell you what I'm going to do. Dead than alive.
No. Don't put that thought in his head.
That's why he's gonna kill himself?
No.
Trigger. He heard you're worth more dead than alive, and the light bulb went off.
More dead than alive. More dead than alive.
Oh my god, you horrible scumbag.
Character out of it?
Than alive.
Is that why he considers taking his own? Because of the life insurance? Like, oh my god! This man's evil.
And I think it's really worth taking into account George's face on that statement, because we're going to go down a quick side street. This is something I can talk about from a more personal situation. I was suicidal for a vast majority of my life, ranging from roughly the age of 5 until about the age of 25. And for most of my teenage into adult years, my intention, largely, was to find a life insurance policy that didn't hold a suicide clause, or else that had one that would lapse after so long, and then end things because I saw my life as holding no value. Obviously, I sit in a much better place now. My point isn't to try to say, oh, woe is me, but that value is essential to masculinity, and the feeling of a man's provision. Women's value is intrinsic, if not as a mother, then as a nurturer and supporter of her husband and family. And she can, of course, then accrue value through the arts or a career or whatever else she so chooses if she wants. But the point is that even if she doesn't desire another calling by pure virtue of being a life giver and nurturer, women are born with value, whereas men are not. We must find value, in the issue with the world's way of viewing things is that it can so quickly and effectively boil everything and everyone down into a number. George's life, and mine in its own way, hold great value. But they are things that can't easily be figured into an accounting sheet, and so when the world totals up the numbers, they are rather sad. Translation being, you have no value. If you want to know the motivation to misery in men, I would argue it is by and large that. Now obviously there's such a thing as believing too much of yourself to the point of ego and narcissism, or applying success to a sense of personality. But typically, especially in the modern age, the issue with young men swings in the other direction, one of feeling worthless due to not having enough monetary worth. George, at this point in the film, completely and utterly embodies this ideal, and the true pity of it is that, like so many who work charitably, his life has enormous value, but it's not something that translates into anything the world finds of worth, and so it's difficult to see. I would use this as a quick comparison, this moment from DreamWorks' Prince of Egypt. For all the artistic liberties taken within the books of Exodus, it tackles things with the correct heart, and after Moses, the Hebrew who was raised as an Egyptian prince instead of a slave, kills one of the slave drivers, he flees into the desert, where he runs into Zipporah's family, most notably in this case her father, Jethro, who celebrates his arrival. Moses rejects this notion, stating he finds no value in his life, but Jethro corrects him, saying not only has he saved each of his daughters in some way, but he has also brought joy to them simply by being there. And then he must look back with a different perspective, culminating in the song Through Heaven's Eyes, which aside from being a heck of a bop, carries poignant ideals forth. Obviously, I can't play the music without huge copyright issues, so I will just recite the lyrics here. A single thread in a tapestry, though its color brightly shines, can never see its purpose in the pattern of the grand design. And the stone that sits on the very top of the mountain's mighty face, does it think it's more important than the stones that form the base? So how can you see what your life is worth, or where your value lies? You can never see through the eyes of man. You must look at your life through heaven's eyes.
I love that line. That was such a cool line. Wow. Okay, I like that line. Why does a line make me excited? It just sounded cool.
Wow, he had some banger bars just now. And it's topical to like what Moses is going through. Dude, not to like bust on Fern Gully again, but Fern Gully could have learned a thing or two.
I really like the meaning of the song.
Oh, that was a bar. I like that line.
Again, this demonstrates the ideal It's a Wonderful Life has been holding throughout its narrative. A life holds little value if you're judging it by any standard that can be objectively measured. Because unless you are objectively at the top of the piece in any metric, there is always another threshold to be reached. Even if you are in the top 100 wealthiest people on Earth, you would not be the most wealthy. And that's before you consider that wealth will bring no true happiness anyway. See the entire book of Ecclesiastes. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. I mean, you talk about Tony just came in and hit it hard. This was a guy who was, he just was like, hey, listen, I really got to ring this gong and I got to make this clear. However, when you step back and approach life from a grander design, approaching it with the hope to help other people, life can, in fact, be a grand and wonderful thing indeed. Another example of this story, and one I alluded to slightly earlier, would be that of Desmond Doss, the field medic in World War II who refused to kill, but held no reservations about going into hellfire in order to rescue soldiers, and ended up winning a Medal of Honor through pure strength and conviction of his belief in God. In fact, much of that movie, starring Andrew Garfield in this portrayal, is either downplayed or played with relative accuracy, such as the moment when Doss's platoon refused to mount their assault until he was finished praying, after seeing the strength of his conviction. My point, of course, is that in this moment, and through the influence of Potter, George sees his life as having no value because it cannot be measured, and men, specifically when it comes to tackling worldly issues, are so very talented at paring things down to numbers. But now, we must consider what truly horrifying state this leaves George in. He has sacrificed everything, given up everything, left behind his dreams, his ambition. He let his brother have that which he can never gain. He left his own family without so much as a lovely home, and he wishes he could give them all this, and all of it in his eyes has ultimately added up to nothing. This is the true pressure of a suicidal move, in that while many are done by people in pain, I have always hated the saying that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. It sounds awful pretty, but in so many cases it's incorrect. George's problem is that his life does not have value that he wanted to ascribe to it.
No securities, no stocks, no bonds, nothing but a miserable little $500 equity in a life insurance policy.
And this is something that will never actually be solved by even at the end of the film. When he has money, George is in every way the type of man who will provide for those in his life until he does not have anything more to give. That is not a temporary problem. That is a vital aspect of who he is, and the stress that places upon him would overwhelm anyone. What solves his desire for everything to end is a change in perspective, which depressed people can so rarely get. Another interesting aspect of this scene is that Potter changes subtly here. He goes from a simple antagonist to a sort of representation of George's fear and panic. It is no longer a case of simply coming to a corrupt old man and begging. Potter begins to level George's worst fears at him.
Go to the riffraff you love so much and ask them to let you have 8,000. You know why? Because they'd run you out of town on a rail.
And so if we step back, we can see Potter is obviously wrong here, at least on the second account. The people, so far as we come to see for a fact, would not run George out. But it's not about the actual logical issues anymore. It's about George's fear and his disgust of himself, combined with the feeling that he must hide his greatest shame for all he knows. Potter threatens to put out a warrant for his arrest, and George falls into a sort of daze and dismay, walking out even as Potter taunts him.
All right, George, go ahead. Go. You can't hide in a little town like this.
He climbs into his old, beaten-down car as the door no longer works, driving home the true state his life has left him in. He makes his way to the bar run by one of the families he's provided a home for, and named for the man, Martini's. Which, again, with a name like that, how could he end up doing anything else than running a bar? But George is dismayed, drinking as he struggles to find an answer to his problem, but none will materialize. We even see him touching and examining the life insurance policy, which we've just learned has so little equity in it. But it does have a large payout. Broken and with little else, George begins to cry while he prays. And we need to talk about that for a moment. See, this is one of those rare moments that happens when an actor and a character cross paths so effectively that the line between the two no longer exists, and it can create for some truly amazing moments. Sometimes this is intentional on the part of the actor, and while there can certainly be such a thing as method acting going too far, such as in Jared Leto's Joker, it can also give some truly amazing performances when it's done well. However, In this case, by what accounts I could find, it was entirely unintentional on the part of Jimmy Stewart, and he genuinely just broke down, feeling the same sense of hopelessness in his own life after his service, and feeling that there was no place left for him in his only main career.
Dear Father in heaven, I'm not a praying man, but if you're up there and you can hear me, show me the way. I'm at the end of my rope.
He's never prayed before.
I'm not a...
Oh my gosh. I can like feel his turmoil.
Dear Father in heaven, I'm at the end of my rope.
The tears are not written in the script, but when the director saw this take, he instantly knew that it was the correct call to keep that shot. In fact, it's actually slightly blown up to capture it because Capra wanted that take, leaving it slightly grainier than the rest of the film. Something that was the right call and continued to speak to many throughout the years.
Watching as he quietly breaks down and prays for help is one of the most powerful and impactful moments in the whole movie, and an absolutely brilliant performance by Jimmy Stewart. This is a broken man at rock bottom, but still the hits keep coming.
One of the most profound scenes in that movie was when Jimmy Stewart, Capra, had that camera on him. He says, "God, if you're out there, please help." And those were real tears. That man flew 26 missions in a Liberator over Germany, World War II. Stewart lived with PTSD his entire life, and especially in that scene. And I'm sure that trauma played out there, but God used it in the most beautiful way.
There's a slight pause, ever so slight but ever so poignant, because it's just a moment when the Hallmark film would have a hero walk through the door and save the day. But of course, that's not what happens here. Instead, acting as a concerned friend, Martini steps in.
Are you all right, George? Want somebody to take you home, huh? Why you drink so much, my friend? Please go home, Mr. Bailey.
To tell George he should go home and celebrate Christmas with his family. Unfortunately for him, Mr. Welsh happens to be on the bar stool next to him at the same time, and so upon hearing George Bailey's name, decides to stand up for his wife.
The next time you talk to my wife like that, you'll get worse.
It's actually interesting to see Martini's reaction, because he does respond rather vehemently on George's behalf.
Oh, get out of here, Mr. Welsh! Ah, wait a minute, I want to pay for my drink. Never mind the money, you get out of here, quick! You hit my best friend, get out!
However, the words bring no comfort. George feels that he has given all he has to give, and even made 2 desperate Hail Mary attempts, and yet there is no lifeline coming to him.
That's what I get for praying.
George gathers himself up, resolute for the end, and walks out, despite the concerns and protests of his friends, which now fall on deaf ears.
No, please, no go this way, Mr. Bailey. No, you no feels good. Sit down and rest. Please, no, go away, please.
He walks out and drives away. Between his stress and sorrow and the alcohol, he's about as safe a driver as a 13-year-old, and smashes into a tree. Because life isn't done kicking George Bailey just yet. An old man comes out yelling in protests.
What do you think you're doing?
George no longer has even the slightest remote bit of fight in him. He walks off, heading for the bridge into Bedford Falls. We see the snow piling down and get our first shot of Clarence as George stares down into the icy water, readying himself for his jump.
Oh no, he's gonna jump, No, not the place. You be at home with your family. We'll think of a solution, okay?
Is he going to do something stupid so that they pay out $15,000? Please don't do that.
As George prepares to throw himself over, Clarence beats him to the punch and begins calling out for help. George is thrown at this, but his action calls him to dive in, just as it did when a much younger Harry Bailey fell into the ice.
He's gonna save him.
Look, he doesn't think. He doesn't think.
Perfect die.
Even though he's about to kill himself, he's worried about other people's lives.
Someone else, he's gonna save him.
He went from about to jump in and take himself out to going to save somebody else. Just like he saved his brother back in the day.
And of course, despite everything, he's still someone who's going to save somebody else.
He removes his coat and dives after Clarence and helps him up. When the station inspector comes out hearing Clarence's screams, George goes to help steady him until they can lift him up. What is the value of a life? It's something no one has ever been able to measure, and yet for some reason it's something none of us seem able to see before it's lost. It's not usually until the funeral that we see how completely touched we are by those in our lives. We cut to the inside of the station, both men drying off their clothes while the station manager eyes them curiously and chews tobacco. Here we get one of the first little neat pieces of character for Clarence, as he's wearing a much older style of undershirt than what would have been common, even in the 40s. Even has some dialogue to explain that effect.
I didn't have time to get some stylish underwear. Wife gave me this on my last birthday. I passed away in it.
I love how nonchalant that statement is and how confused the station manager obviously is by it. And while apparently he decides it's not worth his time talking to the crazy man, he can't help but question it, even non-verbally.
Oh, Tom Sawyer's drying out too.
The scene also showcases the short sting of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which is something of Clarence's unofficial theme. Because, remember, he's the tiny little star with no wings. Clarence reveals that he jumped in the river to save George, to which George protests.
You happened to fall in. I didn't fall in. I jumped in to save George.
You what? To save me?
And Clarence makes the point that George didn't go through with his attempt.
Oh, it's against the law to commit suicide around here. Yeah, it's against the law where I come from, too. Oh, where do you come from? Heaven?
George spends a second lamenting his fortune in life, and Clarence corrects him.
Yeah. I got a bust in the jaw in answer to a prayer a little bit ago.
Oh, no, George. I'm the answer to your prayer. That's why I was sent down here. Clarence Oddbody, AS2.
AS2? What's that AS2?
Angel, second class.
Upon the reveal he's an angel, the station manager falls out of his chair and leaves, because this is well beyond his station and providing the movie a much needed bit of levity after the attempted suicide. This is a staple movie of the holiday season, I will remind you. George questions Clarence, who jumps into the conversation quite casually.
Ridiculous of you to think of killing yourself for money. $8,000.
Yeah, now just things like that. Now, how do you know that?
I told you I'm your guardian angel. I know everything about you.
Of course, George not believing him, he resorts to gallows humor.
Well, you look about like the kind of an angel I'd get. Sort of a fallen angel, aren't you? What happened to your wings?
Finally, trying to get to the bottom rung of it, Clarence confronts George.
I'm worth more dead than alive.
Yeah, stuck with him.
Yep. Yeah, that's ringing a bit too close to home for me.
Uh-huh.
I'm worth more dead than alive.
Yeah, so you still think killing yourself would make everyone feel happier, eh?
Well, I don't know. I guess you're right. I suppose it'd been better if I'd never been born at all.
This is a line that also struck me particularly, as I felt that way through much of my adolescence. Even caused a fight between my mother and I at one point. This is one of the lowest rungs men can be on. Again, I say men because man can be determined by having his worth and provision, and then George thinks he's ultimately a negative impact on the world. It's a bleak and dark, poor mathematical equation, but in the rawest form of work, George has arrived at the idea that he is less than worthless. That is a mood that's virtually impossible to pull someone from. And I like Clarence's solution here, because it might be possible for him to show George what happens if he dies here. But aside from that being the future fucky-wucky time travel stuff, that would also bring about the conclusion of the money issue being taken care of, and then from that purely mathematical sense of things, it would be much harder to bring about George's change in perspective. So instead, Clarence just jumps onto George's suggestion, because by showing him everything that would go away if he had never been born, he is communicating the worth George cannot see.
Wait a minute, that's an idea. What do you think? You've never been born. You don't have to make all that fuss about it.
What'd you say?
You've never been born. You don't exist. You haven't a care in the world. No worries, no obligations, no $8,000 to get, no Potter looking for you with a sheriff.
Say something else in that ear.
Sure, you can hear out of it.
What's the doggone thing? I haven't heard anything out of that ear since I was a kid. Must be that jump in that cold water.
Your lips stop bleeding too, George.
What do you know about that? What's happening? It stopped snowing out here, didn't it? Well, what's happening here? What I need's a couple of good stiff drinks. How about you, Angel? You want a drink? Come on, as soon as these clothes of ours are dry.
Clothes are dry.
And then there's a wonderful bit of comedy that can help ease the tension a bit, because again, this movie's been kicking us all in the collective dick for about 30 minutes now, and finally decided it might be time to let us breathe for just a second. And then, because this film wants to drive home the idea for the audience fairly quickly, we reveal that George's bad ear is suddenly working again, and his lip is completely fine now. George, being a rational man, somehow doesn't think, oh, I have been given a glimpse into another timeline by this goofy little angel. And it's a reasonable reaction, because I've seen people complain about how long it takes him to understand what's going on, but it really doesn't take much.
Say something else in that ear.
Sure, you can hear out of it.
What's the doggone thing? I haven't heard anything out of that ear since it was a kid.
He questions being drugged, considering having gone crazy before being dragged down to the idea that he's in another version of his hometown and that he wants to live. George questions things, but ultimately leaves those behind.
It stopped snowing out here, didn't it? Well, what's happening here? I don't know about that. It's stove's hotter than I thought. Come on, get your clothes on. We'll stroll up to my car and get...
They stroll back, coming upon the tree that George hit, which of course has no mark on it, and there is now no crappy car. The other immediate reveal is the effect of George's absence.
You had me worried. One of the oldest trees in Pottersville.
Pottersville? Why, you mean Bedford Falls?
I mean Pottersville. Don't think I know where I live? What's the matter with you?
And they reach Nick's, formerly Martini's, bar, and we can instantly see that despite it being a small bar, it's a much rougher atmosphere, largely indicated through the rowdy behavior of heavy smoking, because this is the 40s, and that's just unsavory. George asks for a martini, which is dismissed, and he takes this in his disgruntled stride.
Want a martini?
No, Martini, your boss. Where is he?
Hey, look, I'm the boss. You want a drink or don't you?
Okay, all right. Double bourbon, will you? Quick, huh?
Okay.
And then we get a nice touch of wholesomeness from Clarence.
I got it. Mulled wine, heavy on the cinnamon and light on the clothes. Off with you, me lad.
And we get Nick responding the way I've seen some bartenders look at me when I say I prefer screwball.
We save hard drinks in here for men who want to get drunk fast, and we don't need any characters around to give the joint atmosphere.
We then get George's first realization that things are truly out of place.
Do I have to slip you my lip for a convincer?
What's the matter with him? Never saw Nick act like that before.
You see,
and then comes a minute detail that I've actually seen precious few people mention, even though I think it's important to point it out, short as it is.
Hey, little fella, you worry me, you know? You got someplace to sleep?
No.
You don't, huh? Well, you got any money?
No.
See, despite George having a fantastically shit Christmas Eve, despite the fact that literally he was prepared to take his own life a few moments ago, despite thinking Clarence is a nut job of dramatic proportions, despite having nothing to his name at the moment and still being trapped in a horrible fever dream, George still cares about the people around him.
You got someplace to sleep?
Oh, he's always worrying about everyone.
That is an incredible level of human compassion worthy of recognition. And then we get the introduction of one of the film's more iconic bits.
Somebody's just made it.
Made what?
Every time you hear a bell rings, it means that some angel's just got his wings.
George attempts for some discretion, and Clarence, of course being Clarence, doesn't pick up on that idea.
I think maybe you better not mention getting your wings around here. But
why, don't they believe in angels?
Because, you know, sir, he's got the IQ of a rabbit.
As Nick reaches the end of his patience, we see Mr. Gower stumble in. And it's clear this is not the lovely man of George's life, but a broken-down poor hobo, stuffing his suit with paper to keep warm. And we're quickly shown has to beg for the chance for his next drink.
What's that got to do with it? I don't know.
Oh, no.
Holy shit.
George reaches for him, and as much as I give the actor some flack for his overly method acting, I do have to say he delivers rather wonderfully here.
What? Mr. Gower, look, this is George Bailey. Don't you know him? Oh. Mr. Gower.
That's Mr. Gower.
Mr. Gower, look, this is George Bailey. Don't you know him?
No.
No.
Oh my God, Gower. Gower's a mess.
Then, of course, we get the first major shoe drop that without George, Gower poisons a child and spends a good chunk of his life in prison.
Well, that rumhead spent 20 years in jail for poisoning a kid.
Remember he saved it?
Yes. Dude, you had an impact. And you were just gonna throw it all.
He's in jail for poisoning a kid. If you know him, you must be a jailbird yourself.
Because he didn't protect him when his son died.
You see, George, you were not there to stop Gower from putting that poison into the capsule.
What do you mean I wasn't there? Remember the stink?
George protests, and then notes Martini's absence and stares at Clarence, things starting to sink in for him.
Well, this ought to be Martini's place.
I told you, George, I'm your guardian angel.
Yeah, I know. You told me that.
He begins poking and prodding, his mind searching for answers that it cannot give.
What else are you? What are you? You a hypnotist?
No, of course not.
As Clarence drives home the point, so too does the film, as George has no ID, no belongings, and of course, his daughter doesn't exist, so her pedals are not there either. George begins to go into a panic, Jimmy Stewart once again proving he can actually act.
You've been given a great gift, George. A chance to see what the world would be like without you.
Oh, this is some sort of a funny dream I'm having. So long, mister. I'm going home.
Home? What home?
Shut up! Cut it out!
And then we get a cute little moment with Clarence that I thought was pretty funny and actually more of a human moment, such as we get with Jesus throughout the book of John.
How am I doing, Joseph? Thanks. No, I didn't have a drink.
Meanwhile, George makes his way back to what was once Bedford Falls, but as we can see is now drastically gentrified land of Pottersville, sort of a Diet Vegas with the population in sin to match. We see several bars, strip shows, seedy hotels, boxing matches, gambling, and not the hope of a decent family anywhere around. Then George sees what would have been the building and loan is instead a dance club where Violet is being accosted after a dispute with a sailor, and he's moved aside as she is thrown in the back of a police vehicle. He finds Ernie's cab and begs him, really God, for the chance to show him something as he knows it to be.
Oh, I'm going off my nut.
Where do you live?
On a doggone it, Ernie, don't you start pulling that stuff. You know where I live, 320 Sycamore. Now hurry up.
All right,
But of course, this life has no intention of being kind to George right now.
Look, Bud, what's the idea? I live in a shack in Pottersfield. My wife ran away 3 years ago and took the kid, and I ain't never seen you before in my life.
Hell.
Ran away 3 years ago and took the kid, and I ain't never seen you before in my life, see?
Even Ernie's more depressed. This whole town sucks.
As they continue, Ernie mentions to Bert he's got a crazy man in the back of his cab, which is fair. As they arrive at the broken down shack that was once George's house, he attempts to force his way in while Bert and Ernie watch what is, to them, one of the strangest sideshows they've seen. The house is of course broken down, it is filled with the cobwebs, the ceiling is once again patched and leaking, and of course there isn't a speck of life in the joint, which Clarence emphasizes.
They're not here, George. You have no children.
Where are they? What have you done?
George starts protesting, and at this point it's less about not understanding and more a desperation for something to be as he knows it to be, and this is, to what is his mind, just an unshakable fact.
You're a good kid, and we'll take you into a doctor. Everything's going to be all right now.
Bert,
come on.
now listen to it. Ernie, will you take me over to my mother's house? Sure, Bert, listen, it's that fellow there. He says he's an angel. He's trying to hypnotize me.
I hate it.
Bert goes to move George into likely an insane asylum, and then we get Clarence demonstrating what is a rather uncommon form of angel fighting style, the bite on the wrist.
Run, George! Run, George!
This is effective and even slightly hilarious. Not for the reality of human bites, which are potentially horrible, but for the sheer fact that, on paper, to stop a man who doesn't exist from being arrested, an angel has to bite the cop on the wrist, and urges that man to run away while begging his angelic superior for assistance. That is a sentence I've just had to construct and direct at all of you as if it were normal.
Joseph! Help! Oh, shut up! Help! Oh, Joseph! Joseph!
Then Bert and Ernie surrender to one of the only things a person could think to do at that moment.
I need a drink.
Meanwhile, George flees to his mother, who is running a home for people, but is now slightly wild, angry, and alone, and George, despite being her own son, is a stranger to her eyes. And we learn that even the family, who were only ever slightly goofy and quirky, but ultimately good people, don't fare well in this reality at all.
Well, everybody you know. What, your brother-in-law, Uncle Billy.
You know him?
Well, sure I do.
When'd you see him last?
Today, over at his house.
It's a lie. He's been in the insane asylum ever since he lost his business.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Are you finally getting it?
It's actually quite fascinating to look at the effect George has on his uncle, because despite his claims at the threat of the company being shut down...
Oh, never mind. Don't worry about that. They're putting us out of business. So what? I can get another job. I'm only 55.
The reality is George likely saved Billy's life. George comes sprinting forward, looking for some semblance of hope, or sense, or one thing that isn't shit. We see wild fear and desperation in his eyes, aided on by the sweat pouring around his face, which was likely unintentional given again this is actually shot in 90-degree weather, but it adds to the film's sense of panic for a man to be sweating in a snowstorm, so it actually works out quite well. Meanwhile, Clarence leans on the mailbox, calmly making his point.
Each man's life touches so many other lives.
George is convinced he's in a trance, and that by talking to the last man he knew was real, Martini, he might be able to break it. So he heads to Martini's house in Bailey Park, which of course no longer exists, because George wasn't there to build it.
Sure this is Bailey Park?
No, I'm not sure of anything anymore. All I know is this should be Bailey Park.
Oh my lord.
Yep.
We weren't here to build them.
Oh. Which doesn't exist.
Sure
Oh
this
my
is Bailey
gosh.
No, I'm not sure of anything anymore.
A cemetery.
Oh my gosh. It's just a cemetery.
All I know is this should be Bailey Park. But where are the houses?
We weren't here to build them.
Bailey Park doesn't exist. Oh my god, it's a cemetery. Dude, that's so poetic.
And to drive the nail in even further, it's a graveyard, making the point George actually helped save several dozen lives. And we're not even particularly done with that idea yet. He sees a gravestone marked for Harry, and George stands up denying the idea of his brother's death, which I think is one of Stewart's strongest deliveries in the film next to the prayer scene.
Broke through the ice and was drowned at the age of 9.
That's a lie. Harry Bailey went to war. He got the Congressional Medal of Honor. He saved the lives of every man on that transport.
Every man on that transport died. Harry wasn't there to save them because you weren't there to save Harry.
Fuck!
Oh my god, dude.
The transport died. Harry wasn't there to save them because you weren't there to save Harry.
It just keeps going. It does.
Harry's dead?
Brother Harry Bailey
Oh.
was drowned at the
Right.
Harry? Whoa.
Harry,
Oh my gosh.
you really had a wonderful life. Don't you see what a mistake it would be to throw it away?
And of course, capped off by the harrowing realization that an entire transport's worth of men are now dead because Harry could not save them. We're not given a specific number as to the men on the transport, but even a smaller transport in World War II could carry upwards of 1,500 soldiers on it, with many of the largest carrying well over 10,000. But even on the low end, that's still well over 1,000 lives ultimately saved by George, something life cannot measure. Finally, George begs for his wife, Mary. But of course, you'll remember what I said almost, an hour ago at this point? Which is that Mary picked George so she wouldn't wind up an old maid.
She's an old maid. She never married.
That option removed, she winds up alone, with no one for company, working in a library. George goes to see her and begs for her to know him. But of course she doesn't, and she screams in horror, looking at who would have once been her husband, but is now a man she no longer knows. This causes the crowd to react, pushing George away, and Mary flees into a bar. George sees the faces of several people he knows and would call friends, but of course they don't know him. Then Bert walks up. George, left with little other option, punches Bert in the face and sprints away, and Bert starts firing off wildly into the middle of a parked city block. Because I'm guessing no one in production thought of that, unless the implication is that Potter is so utterly evil that he doesn't bother trying to get reports from his cops when somebody is shot in the street. George sprints back up the bridge, yelling out for Clarence, who does not appear, and then George begins to pray to get his life back.
Get me back! Get me back! I don't care what happens to me! Get me back to my wife and kids! I want to live again! I want to live again! I want to live again. Please, God, let me live again.
And we get our first little symbol that things are back as the snow kicks back in. We see Bert exit his car and call for George, our second sign. And George panics for a second as the blood on his lip brings up our trifecta of information, and George slowly comes to realize that he is in fact back. Jimmy Stewart once again doing a pretty damn good job of acting with his eyes, as he celebrates wildly. He then runs through the street giving a joyful Merry Christmas to everyone and even buildings he passes, celebrating on a level even Ebenezer Scrooge couldn't hope to achieve. Finally, it accumulates as he returns home, even happy to celebrate his arrest.
Mary! Where Mr. Bank Examiner. Howard.
Mr. Bailey, there's a deficit.
I know, $8,000.
George, I've got a little paper.
I'll bet it's a warrant for my arrest. Isn't it wonderful? I'm going to jail.
And kisses his family happily. Mary leads them downstairs, and something extremely unimportant happens here, but I noticed it, so now you all will too. The son has a toy gun holster around his waist, despite being in his pajamas and robe. That's absolutely fine. Kids sometimes do weird shit like that, and I like to believe this lends credence to the idea that this child was prepared to have a standoff to save his father, a la Billy Jack style, which is just headcanon, but it makes me smile. Mary clears off a table where Uncle Billy comes in with a large basket, and we see the entire town has come together, donating what little they have to help make up the bank's deficit.
Mary did it, George. Mary did it. She told some people you were in trouble, and they scattered all over town collecting money. Didn't ask any questions.
They collected money for him.
Of course I did.
Because he helped them all.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to happen, and it still got me.
All the people donated.
Mary did it. She told some people you were in trouble, and they scattered all over town collecting money.
Here, George.
Why can't I stop crying? So tender. Come downstairs, quick.
What? What's happening?
Mary did it, George. Mary did it. She told some people you were in trouble, and
Because they all love him. That's how loved he is.
George.
Wait.
Didn't ask any questions. Just said George in trouble. And tell me you spread like a spread like spirit.
Another run on the bank?
Merry Christmas.
The whole town came together to raise $8,000.
Oh, yeah.
People you were in trouble with it. They scattered all over town collecting money.
Here, George. Merry Christmas.
Here.
They did. They hot frosted it.
Isn't it wonderful? Over town collecting money. Didn't ask any questions. Just said George in trouble.
Don't push.
They freaking hot frosted me.
Come in, George.
Oh, because he impacted it. And hopefully Clarence got his wings.
Not only extremely powerful and moving, given the struggle George is in, but we utterly and truly see the level of impact he has had on all of these people, almost all of them jumping in to help without question. We even then get Annie, as ever, stealing the show with a wonderful line.
I've been saving this money for a divorce if ever I get a husband.
And then they read out that Gower has gotten a hold of Sam through the wire, and Sam authorizes up to $25,000 to be sent immediately.
Mr. Gower cabled you need cash. Stop. My office instructed to advance you up to $25,000. Stop. Hee-haw and Merry Christmas.
This one friendship of his adding up to over 3 times the debt he has accrued. Then his daughter begins to play as the whole room joins in, singing, leading to even the bank examiner chipping in and the warrant being ripped apart. The men seeing how valued George is in this town and that he now has more than enough to make up the deficit and then some. We get Harry being rushed in by Bert, who presumably had no money but brought his accordion because, fuck it, I guess.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.
Well, I guess Potter's probably money rich, but George is more rich with family and people that love him, the community. Way richer than Potter could have.
And as we see George reflect on this and the book left by Clarence, it has nothing to do with monetary value. And it's absolutely lovely. Finally, we see the thanks that George was left in the book for the wings as the bell on the Christmas tree ring. And Zuzu quotes the line that we heard earlier, closing out a truly beautiful Christmas film.
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
No, come back.
It's a Christmas present from a very dear friend.
Where's the bell?
That's right.
Stop it. You're making me cry.
Clarence.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every
He's
time
got
a
his
bell
wings.
rings, an angel gets his wings.
There it is.
An angel gets his wings.
Oh, wow. Remember, no man is a failure who has friends.
That's right.
And just Clarence's wings. That's really nice.
Dear George, remember, no man is a failure who has friends. Thanks for the wings.
I'm sad. That's a Christmas present from a very dear friend.
Oh my god. Okay.
That's right. I don't know if I- That's right. That's right.
And so I present my findings. Does it truly matter? Maybe. I like to think so. But I suppose ultimately only time will ever tell. Given this film's ideals, I'm actually a little shocked it's been left as the idea of being just a typical Christmas film.
They freaking hot frostied me.
It's not entirely impossible to see how that happened, because for whatever reason this film bombed so hard upon its release that when it came up for the renewal and copyright, no one bothered to renew it, and so it became an easy, free film to show during the holidays. And it wasn't until that point that it found popularity. But when you actually stop and examine it with some objectivity, I don't really know how it's something you can call a typical Christmas movie. Like, you know how Home Alone is set at Christmas, but it's debated on whether or not it actually is a Christmas film? Really, the state this film is in, though I grant that the Christmas aspect works a little better here, it rings a little more thematically than something like Home Alone, given that It's a Wonderful Life is centered around the ideas of family and value, whereas Home Alone tries to cram it into the first and then last 10 minutes. But it truly handles a lot of rather dark subject material, and not just George's suicidal intent. It locks around the idea of struggle and sacrifice, and even love for the family versus their use in business, as Uncle Billy really isn't a good employee at all, but is family. It comes up with the idea of sacrifice within the family, from the father who was prepared to let George go so he could escape Potter, to George letting Harry go so that he could escape the town. It deals with love, depression, social panic, community, greed, ambition, responsibility, and many other ideals besides. What it certainly isn't is a staple, feel-good Hallmark film, and I find it a little insulting that it gets put into the same box as films like The Christmas Prince, simply because the ending is happy. Of course, that's not to say there aren't those who will determinedly miss the point of the film.
$20,000 a year.
Ask for more.
Oh, this is what happens, guys. If you just put aside your dreams and aspirations constantly, it's no good for your life and your soul.
But I also find it a refreshing relief to have a film that, well, I can't say I would call it Christian-focused, isn't ashamed of having Christianity present, because fuck, those are becoming a rarity in today's world. I'm not the first to note it, but it is actually interesting, as this film is an inversion of A Christmas Carol, where Scrooge had to be taught through his visions, on Christmas Eve, that life has no value if only focused on the self. George had to be shown that his life did in fact have value because he focuses on others. The same lesson, but from a different perspective. One taught a man that was fearing a meaningless death, and the other a meaningless life. Of course, both come to a head by showing a grave in the snow. But let's go ahead and stop and talk character for a moment. Obviously, we'll start with George, who is shown time and time again to be the pinnacle of an adventurous child. He has a good heart, and he's willing to do what is right, even though it might be hard, as his father set such an example for him over time. He doesn't even hesitate to put his own life in danger, whether it's to save his baby brother or stop his drunk boss from making a horrible mistake. He has dreams, he has aspirations, but his entire tale is one of putting everything on hold for the sake of others. He's intelligent and capable. We see as he's prepared to head off onto his honeymoon that he is capable of earning cash when he works at it, and were he even 20% so self-focused a man as Potter, he and Mary would undoubtedly be rather well off. Especially if he had accepted Potter's offer for $20,000 a year. In fact, let's go ahead and crunch some quick numbers on that. George claims he's earning $45 a week, which comes out to about $2,340 a year, as opposed to the $385 a week he'd be making under Potter, which, mind you, adjusted for inflation, actually comes out to a damn respectable $5,600 a week. I know plenty who don't earn that much in a month. From what Google claims, a 1947 house with 4 kids would eat around $12.50 a week in food, not including the cost of milk. But we really don't even have to go into all that. We can use Potter's numbers for a rougher overall accounting of the costs. His calculations come out to where, after having children, George will be spending $40 to $45 a week if living cheap. So let's say he ups that to $50 for some small side comforts. In 3 months, George still could easily have afforded one of those pretty little homes that he's been building for the town people outright. Yet he denies himself all of that because he cannot let his personal ambition put other people out. We see at the end of the film that that is what would happen if he were a lesser man. It's important to note the film doesn't condemn George if he hadn't stayed either. It doesn't demonize him for his initial self-interest.
This town is no place for any man unless he's willing to crawl to Potter.
Rather, it celebrates sacrifice. George is someone who isn't even after the finer things in life, but a life of meaning amongst creation and the unknown, and a desire in a great many people, especially young men. But at the end of the day, he is a man in that he will go without so that others might go with. Not for gratitude, not for glory, not for so much as a thank you, but that their lives would be happy. And all he needed was the occasional proof that it was working. Not to say that a thank you was ever unwelcome for a man who is giving things up, but what he most wants is to be effective, to matter. Let's go ahead and take a look at Mary, a supportive wife and mother, someone who falls in love early on and has her heart set on George, and she makes it clear to him that she loves him, not the promises of anything grand or splendid, not that George doesn't question that at times.
Mary Hatch. Why in the world do you ever marry a guy like me?
But Mary doesn't care to have the nicest house in town. She prefers the old house that needs to be fixed up, full of romance. She doesn't need a brand new car or the finest dress. She needs her family and the man she loves. A true treasure amongst women, and it really does go understated just how amazing her support of George is throughout the film. Mary is the kind of woman that men aspire to wife up, before modern culture killed the idea of romance in traditional relationships. Though that's a subject I could talk quite a bit on, and indeed have on other channels. Harry is also an interesting study, given that he is never one to discourage what George wants. Harry sees everything his big brother does for him, and for all we can see, appears to be extremely grateful for it.
George, about that job. Bruce spoke out of turn. I never said I'd take it. You've been holding the bag here for 4 years, and, well, I won't let you down, George.
He doesn't ask for George to keep the building and loan. He doesn't even act as if he wasn't prepared to step up and hold up his end of the family responsibility. I almost wish we had gotten to see the scene where George told Harry to go on in his place. We also see that Harry does not waste the opportunity. He goes on, works hard, he serves in the war, shooting down 15 enemy planes and saving over 1,500 lives. Something I can only imagine George would approve of, and that's nice to note because younger siblings so often seek the approval of the older. We can also look at Ma Bailey for an interesting study because even in the timeline where she loses her only son at the age of 9, her husband passes away, her brother-in-law goes into the insane asylum, her house becomes a halfway boarding home, because even in all that, she still wants to help people, albeit a significantly shrunken clientele. And of course, one of the cases I find the most interesting to study is that of Mr. Potter. He has no direct story, yet is the most direct antagonist in the film, and it's a label he seems to wear rather happily.
I am an old man, and most people hate me, but I don't like them either, so that makes it all even.
Yet we know there are certainly people like this, even if we may not know them in our own personal lives. I have spoken before about my distaste for one-note villains, but in certain stories, such as It's a Wonderful Life, his backstory would actually only detract from the film, possibly even damage it. One of the most direct comparisons being perhaps something like Cruella, which not only sought to humanize a psychopath, but in the end left things off where she couldn't have a reasonable path to the antagonist that people once knew. So Potter has no real backstory, but is amazingly consistent in his self-interest, in that he is treated as an ever-encroaching force. Once George is gone, it's not explained how Potter took over the town, and uniquely I would say we really don't need one. We've been emphasizing the entire time how George was the last domino standing against him. It's just masterfully done. It's also worth mentioning that this film has something of a unique aspect towards its antagonist, and that there was no resolution with Potter. It wasn't only unique for films of this age, it was practically un-American.
Okay, but seriously, we need to get the 8K back. Like, I know it's not about the money, but I just don't want Potters to get away with that.
And in fact, there was a planned scene for Clarence to confront Potter for stealing the money. But for whatever reason, it was ultimately cut. And while obviously it's hard to say without seeing the scene, I feel like the movie works better without it. There are a great many films that have cut scenes that I think everyone would agree would actually be only to the film's detriment for having them cut.
I don't think you're a waste of space.
See you, Big D. Oh.
But there are a few cases, and this being one of them, where I feel it's actually the right case to have this, because to look back at Potter either detracts from the film's emotional ending, or else neglects the weight of the George-less world we've seen up until then. The film is a masterpiece, which somehow still isn't appreciated as much as I think it ought to be. Despite the emotion it can certainly stir in people.
Genuine English cowhide, combination lock.
This movie's gonna f me up.
Oh, this is gonna be a long movie. Oh no.
God, is this a Christmas movie or is this gonna turn my heartstring out?
Awful.
Anything I
Hey.
You've got your wish.
Hey. Deep
You've never been
breaths.
bored.
Look. Hey, look at this. We're gonna see what it's like.
Oh, why does this make me want to cry? They're all jumping. I'm gonna cry.
George is, that matter of fact, George is the GOAT. So far, this movie, George has been the GOAT. Everybody loves George. He getting business taken care of. He didn't let Potter step all over him, you know? Because George technically wanted to leave. He could have took that offer from Potter and be like, hey, it's my chance to get out of here. But he said, hell no, my dad built this. You're not taking nothing, Potter. I like George, man.
I love this movie. I can already see what this movie is going to turn into and what the message is going to be, and I want to stop.
Make me feel all things. Oh, I just,
Are you all right, George? Want somebody to take you home, huh?
He's not okay. This is really messed up.
Oh my god! Like 5 minutes ago, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna cry in this. What were people talking about? Oh my god, it is a wonderful I get it.
Seeing what life would be like if he was never born. Just making me think about people in my life. People who have played roles big and small in my life. And how differently things would look without them. So then it makes you think like, oh, I hope that I've had a good impact on people.
But of course, that's one of the reasons I enjoy doing breakdowns like this. We break things down to say what's good in it and what works, and despite the cynicisms of the modern writers and the mythical modern audience, I think it says a lot that a film made almost 80 years ago centering on love, family, and sacrifice will forever say more than the slop people deal out today. But that's the state of the modern world. And sadly, at least in Hollywood, the box office will always outspeak the writing. Which is why this wonderful film sat buried and was considered something like a failure, while something like the Lilo & Stitch live-action film is being touted as a wild success, revitalizing Disney's determined to remake everything. And sadly, no matter how determined I and others be, we cannot stop the wheel from turning. Instead, all I can do, and mean to do, is to stop and assess the damage being done, and hope for a brighter future.